When a single father's simple act of kindness catches the eye of a billionaire heiress, neither realizes their chance encounter will challenge everything they thought they knew about love class and what it truly means to protect the ones you care about. But can two people from completely different worlds build something real together? Or will society's expectations tear them apart? Before they even have a chance, the morning mist clung to Portland's downtown streets like a shroud of secrets waiting to be unveiled. Inside Grind Coffee House, the familiar symphony of espresso machines and quiet conversations created a cocoon of normalcy that Ethan Cole desperately needed. He stood in line, his calloused hands wrapped around his phone, scrolling through yet another overdue notice while his heart hammered against his ribs. "Daddy, can we get the chocolate muffin?" 6-year-old Mia tugged at his worn Carhartt jacket, her bright hazel eyes so much like her mother's looking up at him with innocent hope. Ethan glanced at the price board, quickly calculating. The muffin cost $4. He had exactly $7.38 in his checking account until Friday's paycheck. "How about we split a regular muffin instead, sweetheart?" he said, forcing his voice to stay light. "The blueberry ones look really good." Mia's face fell slightly, but she nodded with the resilience that broke his heart daily. At 6 years old, she was already learning to want less, expect less. It was a lesson no child should have to master. 3 people ahead of them in line, a woman sat alone at a corner table, her fingers wrapped around a ceramic mug as she stared out the rain-streaked window. Even from behind, there was something about her posture, elegant yet guarded, that caught Ethan's attention. Her dark hair fell in perfect waves over a cream-colored coat that probably cost more than his monthly rent. "Excuse me, beautiful. Mind if I join you?" The voice cut through the cafe's gentle hum like a rusty blade. Ethan's head snapped toward the sound. A man in an expensive suit reeking of cologne and entitlement had approached the woman's table uninvited. He was already pulling out the chair across from her. "Actually, I do mind," the woman said firmly, not looking up from her coffee. Her voice carried the crisp authority of someone accustomed to being heard. "I'd prefer to sit alone." "Come on, don't be like that." The man leaned closer, his smile predatory. "A woman like you shouldn't be drinking coffee by herself. Let me buy you something better. Champagne, maybe. I know a place." I said no, thank you. The woman's knuckles had gone white around her mug. "Please leave me alone." But the man wasn't listening. He'd sat down anyway, leaning across the table with the aggressive confidence of someone who'd never been told no and meant it. Other customers were starting to notice their conversations dropping to whispers as the tension ratcheted higher. "Look, sweetheart, I'm trying to be nice here." "Daddy." Mia's small hand found his. "That man is being mean to the pretty lady." Ethan felt something cold and sharp crystallize in his chest. He'd seen this before, too many times. Men who thought money or muscles or simple male presence gave them the right to take up space in a woman's world uninvited. His ex-wife Sarah had dealt with men like this. His sister had dealt with men like this. And now his daughter was watching it happen, learning what the world expected her to tolerate. Not today. "Stay right here, Mia," he said quietly, placing his hands on her shoulders. "Don't move from this spot, okay?" The cafe seemed to hold its breath as Ethan crossed the space between the line and the woman's table. His work boots made no sound on the polished concrete floor. The man was still talking, his voice getting louder, more insistent. "Just trying to show you a good time. Don't be such a... Is there a problem here?" Ethan's voice wasn't loud, but it carried the weight of a man who'd spent 15 years in construction, who'd faced down workplace bullies and drunken supervisors and men who thought size meant everything. The harasser looked up, and Ethan saw the exact moment the guy registered his presence, 6 feet of lean muscle hands, scarred from honest work, and eyes that had seen too much to be impressed by expensive cologne and aggressive entitlement. "No problem, buddy," the man said, but his voice had lost some of its swagger. "Just talking to my friend here." "I'm not your friend," the woman said quietly, and when she looked up, Ethan felt something electric pass between them. Her eyes were the color of dark coffee framed by long lashes, but it was the gratitude and relief in them that made his chest tighten. "I asked him to leave me alone." Ethan turned his full attention to the harasser. "You heard her. Time to go." "And who are you, her boyfriend?" The man stood up, puffing out his chest. He was shorter than Ethan, but broader with the soft thickness of someone who paid for gym memberships, but rarely used them. "This is between me and the lady." "No," Ethan said, his voice steady as concrete setting. "It's not. She asked you to leave her alone. That's where this conversation should have ended." The entire cafe had gone silent now. Even the espresso machine seemed to pause in anticipation. Mia was watching from the line, her small face tight with worry. Ethan could feel the weight of every gaze in the room, but all that mattered was the gratitude in the woman's dark eyes and the lesson his daughter was learning. "You don't know who you're messing with," the man hissed, stepping closer. "I could buy this whole place, I could—" "But you can't buy basic decency," Ethan interrupted. "And you can't buy the right to ignore when someone says no. So I'll ask one more time politely. Please leave this woman alone and find somewhere else to drink your coffee." For a moment, the world balanced on a knife's edge. The harasser's face had gone red, his hands clenched into fists. Ethan didn't move, didn't blink, and didn't show even a flicker of the adrenaline coursing through his veins. He'd learned a long time ago that sometimes the threat of violence was enough to prevent it. "This isn't over," the man finally spat, but he was already backing toward the door. "You have no idea what you just—" "Yes, I do," Ethan said calmly. "I helped someone who needed help. Have a good day." The man stormed out the cafe door, slamming behind him hard enough to rattle the windows. Slowly, conversation resumed, but Ethan was already turning back toward the line where Mia waited. "Wait." The woman's voice stopped him mid-step. She was standing now, and he could see she was taller than he'd expected, elegant in a way that spoke of finishing schools and trust funds. But her hands were still shaking slightly around her coffee mug. "Thank you," she said simply. "You didn't have to do that." Ethan shrugged, suddenly aware of his faded jeans and work-stained jacket. "Yes, I did. No one should have to deal with that." She studied his face for a long moment, as if memorizing it. "I'm Lauren." "Ethan." He glanced back at Mia, who was still waiting patiently by the counter. "That's my daughter, Mia." Lauren's gaze followed his, and her expression softened as she took in the little girl's careful posture, the way she was trying so hard to be good. "She's beautiful. She looks like you." "She looks like her mother," Ethan said automatically, then wondered why he'd shared that detail with a stranger. "Can I—" Lauren started, then stopped herself. "Would you let me buy your coffee and whatever she wants? It's the least I can do." Pride flared in Ethan's chest, hot and familiar. He'd learned to swallow it when it came to accepting help for Mia's sake, but this felt different. Charity from a woman who probably thought $4 was pocket change. "That's not necessary," he said. "Really, I'm just glad you're okay." Lauren's dark eyes searched his face, seeing more than he wanted to reveal. "Please," she said softly. "It would mean something to me. Let me do this small thing." There was something in her voice, not pity, but understanding, as if she knew what it cost him to accept and was asking anyway. Ethan looked over at Mia, who was watching their interaction with curious eyes, and felt his resistance crumble. "Okay," he said finally. "Thank you." Lauren's smile transformed her entire face. Thank you for what you did. I've been dealing with men like that my whole life, but no one's ever. She trailed off, shaking her head. Most people pretend not to see. I see everything when it comes to my daughter, Ethan said. I want her to grow up in a world where men like that don't get to just take what they want. Something flickered across Lauren's expression, surprise maybe, or recognition. That's a beautiful way to think about it. They walked to the counter together, Mia falling into step beside them, with the quiet politeness she'd learned from watching Ethan navigate the world. The barista, a college-aged kid with purple hair, looked between them with obvious curiosity. What can I get you folks? 2 regular coffees, Lauren said before Ethan could speak. And whatever this young lady wants. Mia looked up at Ethan, seeking permission. When he nodded, she turned to the barista with the serious expression she wore when making important decisions. Could I please have the chocolate muffin? She asked. And maybe some of that hot chocolate with the marshmallows. Absolutely, the barista said, grinning. Coming right up. As they waited for the order, Lauren knelt down to Mia's level. I'm Lauren, she said. Your dad is very brave. Mia nodded solemnly. He takes care of me, she said, as if this explained everything about bravery worth knowing. I can see that, Lauren said softly. She glanced up at Ethan. You're raising an extraordinary little girl. Heat crept up Ethan's neck. She's the extraordinary one. I'm just trying not to mess it up too badly. I don't think you need to worry about that. Their order was ready, and Lauren handed over her credit card without looking at the total, as they gathered their drinks and Mia's muffin. Ethan found himself reluctant to leave. There was something about Lauren beyond her obvious beauty and grace that drew him in. An intelligence in her dark eyes, a sadness that matched his own. Well, he said awkwardly, I should get going. I need to drop Mia at school and get to work. Of course. Lauren hesitated, then pulled a business card from her purse. It was elegant cream-colored cardstock with simple black lettering. I know this might sound forward, but I'd like to see you again. Maybe for coffee sometime when we both have more time to talk. Ethan stared at the card. Lauren E. Bennett, it read with a phone number, but no company name or title. I don't know, he said honestly. I don't have a lot of free time. I understand, Lauren said quickly, and I don't want to presume anything. It's just what you did today was extraordinary, and I'd like to get to know the man who raised such a wonderful daughter. Mia tugged on Ethan's jacket. Daddy, I like her, she whispered loudly enough for Lauren to hear. Lauren laughed, a sound like silver bells. Well, that settles it, she said. When Mia approves, you have to listen. Despite himself, Ethan smiled. It felt rusty, like a muscle he'd forgotten how to use. I guess you're right. He pocketed the card. I'll call you. I hope you will. They walked toward the door together, but just as they reached it, Lauren touched his arm lightly. Ethan, that man. He said some things about buying this place, about having influence. If he causes any trouble for you... He won't, Ethan said firmly. Guys like that are all bluster. And even if he tried something, I can handle it. Lauren's expression suggested she wasn't entirely convinced, but she nodded. Just be careful, okay? Some people don't like being stood up to. I'll be fine, Ethan assured her. Will you? I will now, she said simply. Outside, the morning rain had stopped, and watery sunlight was beginning to break through the clouds. Ethan helped Mia into his old Ford pickup truck, securing her booster seat, with the practiced efficiency of a man who'd been doing this alone for 2 years. Daddy, Mia said, as he started the engine. Is Lauren going to be our friend? Ethan glanced at the business card on his dashboard, then at his daughter's hopeful face in the rearview mirror. I don't know, sweetheart. Maybe. I hope so, Mia said matter-of-factly. She has kind eyes, like Mommy did. Ethan's chest tightened. Mia rarely mentioned Sarah anymore, and when she did, it was usually in passing observations like this simple truths delivered with the clarity only children possessed. Sarah had been gone for 2 years now, lost to a drunk driver on her way home from her evening shift at the hospital. Some days it felt like a lifetime ago. Other days, like this morning, the grief was still sharp enough to cut. Yeah, he said quietly. She does have kind eyes. As they drove through Portland's morning traffic toward Mia's elementary school, Ethan found his mind wandering back to the cafe. To Lauren's elegant composure under pressure, the way she'd thanked him without making him feel like a hero, her genuine interest in Mia. There had been something different about her, not just her obvious wealth and education, but a quality he couldn't quite name. As if beneath all that polish, she was just as lonely as he was. He pulled up in front of Riverside Elementary, a modest brick building that had seen better decades. Mia gathered her Hello Kitty backpack and lunchbox, then threw her arms around his neck for their daily goodbye hug. I love you, Daddy, she whispered into his collar. I love you too, baby girl. Have a good day at school, okay? Okay. She pulled back to look at him seriously. Will you call Lauren today? Ethan laughed despite himself. Maybe. We'll see. You should, Mia said with 6-year-old certainty. She made you smile. You don't smile enough anymore. The observation hit him like a physical blow. When had his daughter become so aware of his emotional state? When had she started worrying about whether he smiled enough? I smile plenty, he protested gently. Not really smiles, Mia said, climbing down from the truck. Not like you did with Lauren. She skipped toward the school building, her ponytail bouncing, leaving Ethan sitting in his truck, with the uncomfortable realization that his 6-year-old was more emotionally intelligent than he was. The drive to the construction site took him through downtown Portland, past coffee shops and boutiques that might as well have been on Mars for all the relevance they had to his daily life. He worked for Cascade Construction, a mid-sized company that specialized in residential developments and commercial renovations. The pay was decent when there was work, but construction could be feast or famine, and lately it had been more famine than feast. The current job was a high-end apartment complex in the Pearl District, the kind of place where a 1-bedroom cost more per month than Ethan made in 3. He pulled into the worker parking area, a muddy lot filled with pickup trucks and tool trailers, and grabbed his hard hat and safety vest from behind the seat. Cole, you're late. Jimmy Reyes, the foreman, was waiting by the trailer with his clipboard and his perpetual scowl. Jimmy was a good guy underneath all the bluster, but he took the schedule seriously. Sorry, Jimmy. Had to handle something with Mia. It wasn't exactly true, but Ethan had learned that mentioning his daughter usually bought him some slack with the other guys. Yeah, well, just get suited up and get to work. We're behind on the interior framing for the 3rd floor, and the inspectors are coming Thursday. Ethan nodded and headed toward the building. The work was familiar and physical, measuring, cutting, hammering, building something solid and real from raw materials. It was honest work that left him tired but satisfied, and it required enough concentration that he could usually forget about overdue bills and parent-teacher conferences and the constant low-level anxiety of single parenthood. Usually. Today, his mind kept wandering back to the cafe, to Lauren's grateful smile and the way she'd knelt down to talk to Mia at eye level, to the business card in his pocket and Mia's observation about his smiles. Earth to Ethan. Tony Martinez, his work partner, was holding the other end of a 2x4, waiting for Ethan to mark the cut line. Tony was younger than Ethan by 5 years, but had been doing construction twice as long. He was also one of the few people who knew the full story of Ethan's situation. "Sorry, man. Mine's elsewhere today." "Yeah, good elsewhere or bad elsewhere." Tony had a gift for reading people, probably from growing up as the oldest of 7 kids. Ethan considered the question as he marked the board. "I'm not sure yet." They worked in companionable silence for a while, the rhythm of construction work soothing Ethan's restless thoughts. But during lunch break, as he sat in his truck eating a sandwich and looking at his bank account on his phone, reality crashed back in. The notice from the electric company was due tomorrow. Mia's school had sent home a form for a field trip that cost $35, money he didn't have but couldn't bear to deny her. And according to his phone, he had 17 text messages from his landlord about next month's rent. He pulled Lauren's business card from his pocket, studying it in the afternoon light. The cardstock was expensive, the kind of quality that spoke of serious money. What was a woman like that doing drinking coffee alone on a Tuesday morning? And why had she seemed so genuinely interested in seeing him again? "Daddy issues," Tony said, appearing at his truck window with a knowing grin. "Rich girl rebelling against daddy by slumming it with the working class." "It's not like that," Ethan said, though he wasn't entirely sure what it was like. "Dude, I've seen you with exactly 3 women since Sarah died." Tony continued unwrapping his own sandwich. "Your sister Mia's teacher and the lady at the grocery store who always gives you the expired milk discount. If some woman is interested in you, don't overthink it. Just see what happens." "What if she's crazy? What if she's not?" Tony countered. "What if she's exactly what you and Mia need?" Ethan stared at the business card, remembering Mia's words about Lauren's kind eyes, about how she'd made him smile, about how he didn't smile enough anymore. Before he could change his mind, he pulled out his phone and dialed the number on the card. It rang twice before a warm, familiar voice answered. "Lauren Bennett?" "Hi," Ethan said, suddenly feeling like a teenager asking for his first date. "It's Ethan. From the coffee shop this morning." "Ethan." The pleasure in her voice was unmistakable. "I was hoping you'd call." "Were you?" "Yes. I've been thinking about what you said about wanting Mia to grow up in a better world. I'd like to hear more about that. And about you." Ethan closed his eyes, feeling something shift in his chest. Something that had been locked away for 2 years, carefully protected behind walls of responsibility and grief and the simple need to survive each day. "Would you like to have dinner sometime?" he heard himself ask. "I'd love that," Lauren said softly. "When? How about Friday? I could get a sitter for Mia." "Actually," Lauren interrupted, "would it be presumptuous to ask if Mia could join us? I meant what I said about wanting to get to know you both." Ethan felt his throat tighten with an emotion he couldn't name. When was the last time anyone had wanted to include Mia rather than treat her as an obstacle to overcome? "She'd like that," he said finally. "She doesn't meet many new people." "Then it's perfect. Do you know Antonio's? It's a family place in the Alberta Arts District. Nothing too fancy, but the food is incredible." Ethan did know Antonio's had driven past it countless times, but never been able to afford eating there. "That sounds great." 7 o'clock. 7 o'clock, he confirmed. "I'll see you then, Ethan. And thank you for this morning, for calling, for giving me something to look forward to." After he hung up, Ethan sat in his truck for a long moment staring at his phone. Tony was watching him from across the parking lot with undisguised curiosity, but Ethan ignored him. For the first time in months, maybe years, He felt something that might have been hope stirring in his chest. Maybe Mia was right. Maybe he didn't smile enough anymore. Maybe it was time to change that. The afternoon passed more quickly after that. Ethan found himself working with unusual energy, his mind already racing ahead to Friday night. What would he wear? What would they talk about? Would Mia behave, or would she pepper Lauren with the kind of innocent but mortifying questions 6-year-olds specialized in? By the time he picked Mia up from school, his nervousness had crystallized into genuine excitement, an emotion so unfamiliar, it took him a moment to recognize it. "How was school, sweetheart?" he asked, as Mia climbed into her booster seat. "Good. We learned about butterflies. Did you know they taste with their feet?" "I did not know that," Ethan said solemnly. "That's pretty amazing." "Daddy." Mia's voice carried that particular tone that meant she was about to ask something important. "Did you call Lauren?" Ethan met her eyes in the rearview mirror. "I did. And we're going to have dinner on Friday. All 3 of us." Mia's face lit up like Christmas morning. "Really, she wants to have dinner with me too. She specifically asked if you could come along." "I like her already," Mia declared with the decisive judgment of childhood. "Can I wear my purple dress, the one with the flowers? You can wear whatever you want, baby girl." As they drove home through Portland's early evening traffic, Ethan found himself thinking about second chances, about the randomness of life that could bring a woman like Lauren into a place like Grind Coffee House at exactly the moment when she needed help, and he was there to provide it. About the courage it took to step outside your own problems long enough to see someone else's need. Sarah had always said that kindness was never wasted, even when it seemed to disappear into the void. "It comes back," she'd insisted during the hardest times when Ethan was working double shifts, and she was studying for nursing boards, and they were both too exhausted to remember why they'd thought having a baby was a good idea. "Maybe not when you expect it, and maybe not in the form you recognize, but it comes back." He'd stopped believing that after she died. The drunk driver who killed her walked away without a scratch, and no amount of kindness could bring her back, or pay the medical bills, or explain to a 4-year-old why mommy wasn't coming home. Kindness, Ethan had learned, was a luxury he couldn't afford. But maybe, just maybe, Sarah had been right after all. The apartment complex where they lived was a far cry from the luxury high-rise he was helping to build downtown. Built in the 70s and showing its age, it was the kind of place where young families started out, and old people ended up where the walls were thin, and everyone knew everyone else's business, whether they wanted to or not. Mrs. Rodriguez from 2B was waiting by the mailboxes when they arrived, her small dog yapping at her feet. She was in her 70s, widowed, and had appointed herself the unofficial grandmother to every child in the building. "Mia, mi amor," she called out in accented English. "How was school?" "We learned about butterflies." Mia ran over to pet the dog, an ancient Chihuahua named Pepito, who tolerated children with remarkable patience. "They taste with their feet." "Mrs. Rodriguez." "Ay, que maravilloso." Mrs. Rodriguez's eyes found Ethan over Mia's head. "You look different today, mijo. Happy, maybe?" Ethan felt heat rise in his cheeks. "Just a good day, I guess." "About time, Mrs. Rodriguez said, with the bluntness of someone who'd lived long enough to say exactly what she thought. "A man like you should not be alone so much. It's not good for you or for this little one." "I'm not alone," Ethan protested. "I have Mia." "That's not the same thing, and you know it." Mrs. Rodriguez fixed him with a knowing look. "Children need to see their parents happy. They need to learn what love looks like." The words followed Ethan up the stairs to their second-floor apartment. As he unlocked the door and Mia ran inside chattering about butterflies and field trips and whether Lauren liked pizza, he found himself wondering what love looked like to a 6-year-old who'd lost her mother and watched her father struggle just to keep them both afloat. Their apartment was small but clean, filled with Mia's artwork and the second-hand furniture Ethan had managed to accumulate over the past 2 years. It wasn't much, but it was theirs, and more importantly, it was stable. After the chaos of those first months after Sarah's death, the hospital bills, the insurance battles, the scramble to find childcare and keep his job stability had become Ethan's highest priority. "Daddy, I'm hungry," Mia announced, dropping her backpack by the door. "What do you want for dinner? Can we have spaghetti with the sauce from the jar?" Ethan smiled despite himself. Mia's culinary standards weren't particularly high, which was fortunate given his cooking skills. "Spaghetti it is." As he cooked and Mia worked on her homework at the kitchen table, Ethan found his mind drifting to Friday night again. What was Lauren's story? What did a woman like her do for work? Why had she been sitting alone in a coffee shop on a Tuesday morning? And why had she seemed so genuinely grateful for his intervention? "Daddy?" Mia's voice interrupted his thoughts. "Are you nervous about dinner with Lauren?" The question caught him off guard. "Why would you think that?" "Because you keep stirring the sauce, but it's not bubbling anymore," Mia pointed out, with the practical observation skills of someone who'd learned to pay attention to adult behavior. Ethan looked down at the saucepan in his hand. She was right, he'd been stirring cold marinara sauce for who knew how long. "Maybe a little nervous," he admitted, turning the heat back on. "Why? How do you explain to a 6-year-old the complexity of adult relationships, the way hope and fear could tangle together until you couldn't tell which was which? The vulnerability of letting someone new into the small, carefully protected world you'd built around your child?" "I guess because I like her," he said finally. "And when you like someone, you want them to like you back." Mia nodded sagely, as if this made perfect sense. "She already likes you, Daddy. I could tell." "How could you tell?" "The way she looked at you. Like how I look at ice cream." Ethan burst out laughing, the sound surprising both of them. It had been so long since he'd laughed, really laughed, that it felt foreign in his throat. "Like ice cream," he managed. "You know," Mia said, grinning, "happy and excited and maybe a little bit like you might eat it all up." The image was so ridiculous and so perfect that Ethan couldn't stop laughing. Mia joined in her high giggle, mixing with his deeper chuckles, and for a moment their small kitchen was filled with something it had been missing for too long: joy. Later, after dinner was finished, and Mia was bathed and tucked into bed, with a story about a butterfly who learned to taste flowers with her feet, Ethan sat alone in his living room and pulled out Lauren's business card again. In the lamplight, the elegant cardstock seemed to glow. He Googled her name on his phone, not sure what he expected to find. The results made his breath catch in his throat. Lauren Elizabeth Bennett, 29, was the heir to Bennett Industries, a Fortune 500 company that specialized in sustainable technology and green energy. Her father, Robert Bennett, was worth an estimated $2.3 billion. Lauren herself sat on the boards of 3 major charities and had graduated magna cum laude from Stanford with degrees in environmental science and business administration. Ethan stared at his phone screen, feeling the bottom drop out of his stomach. A billionaire. He'd defended a billionaire heiress from harassment, and now she wanted to have dinner with him and his daughter at a family restaurant in Portland. The rational part of his brain started cataloging all the reasons this was impossible. They lived in different worlds, literally different universes. She probably had security teams and personal assistants, and a social calendar filled with galas and board meetings. What could she possibly want with a construction worker who clipped coupons and bought generic cereal, but But then he remembered the gratitude in her dark eyes, the way she'd knelt down to talk to Mia, the genuine warmth in her voice when she'd asked about including his daughter in their dinner plans. Whatever Lauren Bennett's reasons for wanting to see him again, they hadn't felt like charity or curiosity about how the other half lived. His phone rang, startling him out of his spiraling thoughts. The number was unfamiliar. "Hello? Ethan, it's Lauren. I hope I'm not calling too late." Her voice sent an unexpected warmth through his chest. "No, not at all. Mia's asleep, but I'm still up." "Good. I wanted to call because—" She paused and he could hear something like nervousness in her voice. "I realized after we hung up that I didn't ask if you had any dietary restrictions, or if Mia is a picky eater. I don't want to suggest somewhere that won't work for you both." The thoughtfulness of the question, the genuine concern for Mia's preferences, made something tight in Ethan's chest loosen slightly. "She's 6, he said. "She thinks chicken nuggets are a major food group, but Antonio's should be fine, they have pizza, right?" Lauren's laugh was soft and musical. "They do, and their pizza is incredible. I think she'll love it." "She's excited," Ethan said. "She asked if she could wear her purple dress with the flowers." "She sounds wonderful. I'm looking forward to getting to know her better." There was something in Lauren's voice, a wistfulness maybe, that made Ethan wonder about her own childhood. Growing up with billions of dollars probably came with its own complications. "Lauren," he said before he could stop himself. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why me? I mean, you could have dinner with anyone. Why do you want to spend Friday night with a construction worker and his 6-year-old daughter?" The silence stretched long enough that Ethan wondered if he'd offended her. When she finally spoke, her voice was quieter than before. "Because when I needed help this morning, you were the only one who stepped forward," she said simply. "Because you did it without thinking about what you might gain from it. And because when I asked about including Mia, your whole face lit up like I'd just given you the greatest gift in the world." Ethan felt his throat tighten. "She is the greatest gift in my world." "I know," Lauren said softly. "I could see it. And I'd like to know what that feels like, being someone's whole world, being loved that unconditionally. I think Mia could teach me something about that." The honesty in her words took his breath away. Here was a woman who could buy anything, go anywhere, have access to experiences most people could only dream about. And what she wanted to learn about was the love between a father and his daughter. "I think you might teach us something too," Ethan found himself saying. "What's that?" "I don't know yet, but I'm looking forward to finding out." After they hung up, Ethan sat in his quiet living room for a long time, staring out the window at the Portland skyline. Somewhere out there, in a world of privilege and wealth, he could barely imagine Lauren Bennett was probably getting ready for bed in a mansion or penthouse surrounded by luxury beyond his comprehension. But she'd called him concerned about Mia's dinner preferences and excited about spending Friday night at a neighborhood Italian restaurant. For reasons he couldn't fully understand, she'd chosen them, chose him and his daughter, and their small, simple life over whatever glittering alternatives were available to her. Ethan pulled out his phone one more time and sent a text to his sister Jamie, who lived across town and occasionally babysat for him. "Are you free Friday night for a few hours? I have a date." "Well, kind of a date. It's complicated." Her response came back almost immediately. Finally. "Yes, I'm free. Details tomorrow. So proud of you." As he got ready for bed, Ethan caught sight of himself in the bathroom mirror. Tony had been right, he did look different today. There was something in his eyes that hadn't been there in a long time. Hope, maybe. Or possibility. He thought about Mrs. Rodriguez's words, about children needing to see their parents happy. about learning what love looked like. For 2 years, he'd focused so completely on being both mother and father to Mia, on providing for her and protecting her and making sure she felt secure, that he'd forgotten about his own happiness entirely. Maybe it was time to remember that he was more than just Mia's father. Maybe it was time to remember that he was a man who deserved good things, too. In the morning, he would go to work and frame walls and try not to think too much about Friday night. But tonight, for the first time in longer than he could remember, Ethan Cole fell asleep smiling. Friday arrived with the kind of crisp autumn air that made Portland feel like a postcard. Ethan had barely slept the night before, his mind cycling through every possible scenario for the evening ahead. By the time his alarm went off at 6, he'd already been lying awake for 2 hours, staring at the ceiling and wondering what a billionaire heiress and a construction worker could possibly have to talk about over dinner. The workday dragged with excruciating slowness. Every hammer blow, every measurement, every conversation with his crewmates felt like it was happening underwater. Tony noticed immediately. "Dude, you're wound tighter than a $2 watch," he observed as they carried drywall sheets up to the 3rd floor. "It's just dinner." "It's not just dinner," Ethan muttered, positioning his end of the sheet against the wall. "I Googled her, Tony. She's worth more money than I'll make in 10 lifetimes. So what am I supposed to talk to her about? My collection of past due notices, the thrilling world of generic cereal brands." Tony stopped working and fixed Ethan with the kind of look he usually reserved for particularly dense apprentices. "You're going to talk to her about the same thing you talked about when you first met her, being a decent human being. That's what caught her attention, remember, not your bank account." "That's different. That was just you being you," Tony interrupted. "Which is apparently exactly what she wants to see more of. Stop overthinking it, man. She asked you out, not the other way around." Despite Tony's reassurances, Ethan found himself checking his phone every few minutes, half expecting a text from Lauren canceling their plans. Some emergency board meeting or charity gala that would suddenly take priority over dinner with a single dad and his 6-year-old. But the cancellation never came. Instead, at 2 o'clock, his phone buzzed with a message that made his pulse quicken, looking forward to tonight. "Should I pick you up, or would you prefer to meet at the restaurant?" Ethan stared at the text for a long moment. The practical part of his brain said meeting at the restaurant made more sense, no need for her to see the apartment complex with its cracked parking lot and broken security gate. But something about letting her come to his world, seeing where he and Mia actually lived, felt important. He typed back, "You can pick us up if you want. Fair warning though, we're not exactly in your neighborhood." Her response was immediate. "I'd love to see where you live. Text me your address." At exactly 5 o'clock, Ethan clocked out and drove home faster than he'd ever driven in his life. Mia was waiting with Jamie, his sister, who'd arrived early to help with the pre-date preparation ritual that apparently required female supervision. "Uncle Jamie helped me pick out my dress," Mia announced, twirling in her purple outfit, with the kind of confidence that only 6-year-olds possessed. "And she did my hair." Jamie had indeed worked some kind of magic, turning Mia's usually unruly curls into an elegant braid, decorated with small flower clips. But it was the expression on his daughter's face, pure excitement, mixed with careful attention to being pretty, that made Ethan's heart clench. "You look beautiful, sweetheart," he said, kneeling down to her level. "Like a princess." "Jamie says you look nervous," Mia observed with the directness that never failed to catch him off guard. "I am nervous," Ethan admitted, glancing at his sister. "But that's okay. Sometimes being nervous means something good is about to happen." Jamie, who was 28 and worked as a nurse at the same hospital where Sarah had been employed, studied her brother with the practiced eye of someone who'd been worrying about him for 2 years. When was the last time you went on a date? She asked quietly, while Mia was distracted by her reflection in the hallway mirror. This isn't really a date. It's dinner. With Mia. Ethan. Fine. It's been about 3 years. Happy now. Jamie's expression softened. Actually, yes. I'm proud of you for putting yourself out there again. Sarah would want you to be happy. The mention of his late wife sent the familiar pang through Ethan's chest, but for once it didn't feel entirely painful. Sarah would want him to be happy. More importantly, she'd want Mia to see him happy. I should shower, he said, suddenly aware that he smelled like sawdust and construction site coffee. She'll be here at 6:30. Go, Jamie said, shooing him toward the bathroom. I'll keep Mia entertained. The shower helped calm his nerves slightly, the hot water washing away the physical residue of the workday, even if it couldn't quite rinse away his anxiety. He dressed carefully in his best jeans, the ones without any paint stains or tears, and a button-down shirt that Jamie had given him for Christmas, but he'd never had occasion to wear. When he emerged from the bedroom, he found Mia and Jamie sitting on the couch, deep in conversation, about what questions were appropriate to ask Lauren, and which ones might be too personal for a first dinner, as Jamie put it. Like I shouldn't ask how much money she has. Mia was explaining seriously, because that's rude. But I can ask about her favorite color, and if she likes butterflies. Exactly right, Jamie confirmed. And remember what we talked about. Use my inside voice and keep my napkin on my lap and say please and thank you, Mia recited dutifully. Ethan was about to tease them both about their extensive preparation when a soft knock at the door made all three of them freeze. She's here, Mia whispered, her eyes going wide. Ethan's heart started hammering against his ribs as he walked to the door. Through the peephole, he could see Lauren standing in the hallway, and his breath caught in his throat. She was wearing a simple black dress that probably cost more than his monthly salary, but she'd paired it with flat shoes and a lightweight cardigan that made her look approachable rather than intimidating. Her dark hair fell in loose waves around her shoulders, and she was holding a small bouquet of flowers. He opened the door, and her smile hit him like a physical force. Hi, she said softly. Hi. He was suddenly aware of every detail about his appearance, from the slight fraying at his shirt collar to the calluses on his hands. You look beautiful. Thank you. So do you. Her eyes moved past him to where Mia and Jamie were hovering in the living room. And there's my dinner date in the purple dress. Mia stepped forward with the careful dignity she'd been practicing all afternoon. Hello, Lauren. Thank you for inviting us to dinner. Thank you for coming with me, Lauren replied, kneeling down to Mia's level just as she had at the coffee shop. These are for you. I wasn't sure what your favorite flowers were, so I brought a little bit of everything. The bouquet was small and obviously chosen with a child in mind. Bright gerbera daisies mixed with baby's breath and tiny roses in shades of pink and yellow. Mia's face lit up as she accepted them. They're perfect, she breathed. I love all the colors. Should we put them in water before we go? Lauren suggested, and something about the easy way she included herself in their routine made Ethan's chest tighten with an emotion he couldn't name. Jamie stepped forward with a knowing smile. I'm Jamie, Ethan's sister. I'll take care of the flowers while you're gone. It's nice to meet you, Lauren said, rising to shake Jamie's hand. Thank you for helping tonight. Are you kidding? I wouldn't miss this. Ethan hasn't been on a date since... Jamie caught herself glancing quickly at Mia. Well, it's been a while. Heat crept up Ethan's neck. We should probably go, he said quickly. Don't want to be late for our reservation. Lauren's car was parked in the visitor spot near the building entrance, and Ethan had to work hard to keep his expression neutral when he saw it. The sleek black Tesla looked completely out of place in the parking lot, full of aging sedans and pickup trucks, but Lauren seemed oblivious to the contrast. "I brought a booster seat," she said, popping the trunk. "I hope that's okay. I wasn't sure about the regulations, and I wanted to make sure Mia was safe." The thoughtfulness of the gesture, that she'd not only remembered they'd need a car seat, but had gone out and purchased one specifically for tonight, rendered Ethan momentarily speechless. In his experience, people without children rarely remembered details like car seat requirements. That's really thoughtful," he managed. "Thank you." Lauren waved off his gratitude as she helped install the booster seat with surprising efficiency. "I may not have kids, but I have 3 nieces. I've learned a thing or two about car safety." The drive to Alberta Arts District took them through some of Portland's most eclectic neighborhoods. Mia chattered happily from the back seat about school and butterflies and whether Lauren had ever seen the butterfly garden at the Science Museum. Lauren responded to each question with genuine interest, asking follow-ups that showed she was actually listening rather than just being polite. "Have you ever seen a butterfly taste something with its feet?" Mia asked as they stopped at a red light. "I haven't," Lauren admitted. "But now I really want to. Do you think they ever get confused and try to walk on their food?" Mia dissolved into giggles at the mental image. "That would be so silly. They'd get their feet all sticky," watching Lauren interact with his daughter in the rearview mirror. Ethan felt some of his nervousness begin to ease. Whatever her reasons for wanting this dinner, her interest in Mia seemed completely genuine. Antonio's was exactly the kind of place Ethan had imagined, warm and bustling with checkered tablecloths and the sound of families enjoying their Friday night meals. The hostess, a teenage girl with bright pink hair, looked twice when she saw Lauren, but managed to maintain her professional composure as she led them to their table. "This is nice," Lauren said, settling into her chair and looking around the restaurant with apparent delight. "It feels like a real neighborhood place." "You say that like it's a good thing," Ethan observed, helping Mia with her napkin. "It is a good thing. Most of the restaurants I go to feel like museums, beautiful but cold. This feels alive." Their waitress appeared almost immediately, a middle-aged woman named Rosa, who clearly recognized Lauren but was too professional to mention it. "Welcome to Antonio's," she said warmly. "Can I start you off with some drinks? Chocolate milk?" Mia said immediately, then caught herself. "Please. Chocolate milk, please." "Of course, sweetheart. And for the adults?" Ethan ordered water, suddenly aware of the prices on the drink menu. Lauren must have noticed his hesitation because she caught Rosa's attention as the waitress was turning away. "Actually, could we see your wine list? I'd love to celebrate tonight with something special." "Certainly. I'll be right back with your drinks and the wine menu." After Rosa left, Lauren turned to Ethan with a gentle expression. "I hope that was okay. I should have asked first." "You don't need to." Ethan started, then stopped himself. "Actually, that sounds nice. Thank you." The wine list, when it arrived, made Ethan grateful that Lauren was handling the ordering. Even the cheapest bottle cost more than he usually spent on groceries in a week. But Lauren studied the options with the same careful attention she'd given everything else that evening. "The Pinot Noir," she told Rosa. "And please don't let us rush through dinner. We're in no hurry tonight." As they waited for their wine, Mia launched into a detailed explanation of her week at school, complete with a demonstration of how butterflies use their proboscis to drink nectar. Lauren listened with rapt attention, asking questions that showed she was genuinely interested in a 6-year-old's perspective on Lepidoptera biology. "And did you know," Mia continued, warming to her subject, "that butterflies can't fly if it's too cold? They need the sun to warm up their wings. That's fascinating, Lauren said. So they're kind of like solar-powered flying flowers. Exactly. Mia beamed at having found someone who understood her analogy. Ethan watched this exchange with growing amazement. In his limited dating experience, which admittedly was mostly from before Mia was born, most women had tolerated his daughter as a necessary inconvenience. They'd been polite but clearly counting the minutes until they could have adult conversation. Lauren, by contrast, seemed to find Mia's enthusiasm genuinely delightful. The wine arrived, and Rosa poured a small taste for Lauren's approval. After she'd nodded, and the glasses were filled, Lauren raised hers in a toast. To new friends, she said, and to brave fathers who stand up for people who need help. To kind strangers who become friends, Ethan replied, surprising himself with his boldness. To butterflies, Mia added, holding up her chocolate milk. They all laughed, and suddenly the evening felt less like a formal date and more like three friends enjoying each other's company. The feeling continued as they ordered food pizza, for Mia chicken parmesan, for Ethan, and seafood risotto for Lauren, and settled into the kind of easy conversation that usually took months to develop. Can I ask you something? Lauren said after their entrees arrived. What made you want to work in construction? Ethan paused with his fork halfway to his mouth, surprised by the genuine curiosity in her voice. Most people either assumed construction was a fallback career or asked the question in a way that implied they were really asking why he hadn't done something better with his life. I like building things, he said finally. There's something satisfying about starting with nothing but plans and raw materials and ending up with something real and solid that people can live in or work in. Plus, it's good, honest work that pays decent wages. Do you enjoy the company you work for? Cascade. Yeah, they're good people. Fair wages, safety first, no cutting corners on quality. It's not always steady work, but that's the nature of the industry. Lauren nodded thoughtfully. What would you do if you could do anything, if money wasn't a consideration? The question caught Ethan off guard. When was the last time anyone had asked him about his dreams rather than just his circumstances? I used to think about starting my own construction company, he admitted. Specializing in affordable housing, maybe. There's such a shortage of decent places for working families to live, especially in Portland. But that would take capital I don't have, and business experience I've never had time to get. That's a beautiful dream, Lauren said softly. Building homes for families who need them. What about you? Ethan asked, turning the question around. I mean, I know about your father's company, but what do you actually want to do? Something flickered across Lauren's expression, surprise maybe that he'd asked about her personal goals rather than her family's empire. I want to prove that business can be a force for good, she said slowly. My father built Bennett Industries on the idea that companies have a responsibility to their communities, not just their shareholders. I want to continue that legacy, but expand it, show that you can be profitable and ethical at the same time. That's why you asked about construction, Ethan realized. You're thinking about the housing shortage. Among other things, yes. Portland's growing so fast, but most of the new development is either luxury condos or cheaply built apartment complexes that fall apart in 5 years. There has to be a middle ground quality housing that working families can actually afford. Ethan felt something shift in his understanding of Lauren. She wasn't just a wealthy woman playing at philanthropy. She was genuinely grappling with real problems, looking for solutions that went beyond writing checks. Daddy used to build things before I was born, Mia piped up, apparently having followed more of their conversation than Ethan had realized. He showed me pictures of houses he helped make. Did he? Lauren smiled at Mia, then looked back at Ethan. I'd love to see those sometime. The evening continued to unfold with surprising ease. They talked about everything from Mia's favorite books to Portland's changing neighborhoods to Lauren's travels for Bennett Industries. What struck Ethan most was how normal it all felt, despite the obvious differences in their backgrounds, despite the expensive car and designer dress and wine that cost more than his grocery budget. Lauren asked intelligent questions about construction techniques and seemed genuinely interested in the answers. She told funny stories about board meetings and family dinners that made her sound more like a regular person navigating complicated family dynamics than a billionaire heiress. And through it all, she treated Mia like a valued participant in the conversation rather than a cute accessory to be tolerated. "Can I ask you something kind of personal?" Ethan found himself saying as they finished their main courses. "Of course." "Why were you sitting alone in that coffee shop on Tuesday morning? I mean, don't you have assistants and schedules and—" He gestured vaguely, trying to encompass the complexity he imagined her life must involve. Lauren's smile turned slightly sad. "I do have assistants and schedules. That's exactly why I was sitting alone in a coffee shop. Sometimes I just need to be somewhere normal, where nobody knows who I am or what they want from me. That must be lonely." "It can be," she admitted. "Most of the time I'm surrounded by people, staff business associates, family members who all have opinions about what I should be doing. But being surrounded by people isn't the same thing as not being lonely." Ethan understood that feeling more than he cared to admit. Since Sarah's death, he'd often felt isolated, even in crowds carrying the weight of single parenthood and financial stress in a bubble that seemed impermeable to real connection. "Is that why you wanted to have dinner with us?" he asked gently. "Because we don't know who you are?" Lauren considered the question seriously, twirling her wineglass between her fingers. "Partly," she said finally, "but mostly because of how you looked at your daughter when she asked about the chocolate muffin. Like she was the most important person in the world, and making her happy was the only thing that mattered." "She is the most important person in my world." "I know, and I've never seen anything like that before, that kind of pure, uncomplicated love. I wanted to understand what it felt like to be around it." The honesty in her words took Ethan's breath away. Here was a woman who could have anything money could buy, and what she wanted was to understand the love between a father and his daughter. "What about your family?" he asked carefully. "Your parents?" "My father loves me," Lauren said, "but it's complicated by expectations and business considerations and his vision for my future. My mother died when I was 12, and after that it was mostly just my father and me and the weight of carrying on the family legacy." "I'm sorry," Ethan said softly. "About your mother." "Thank you. It was a long time ago, but you never really get over losing a parent that young." Mia, who had been quietly working on her pizza while the adults talked, suddenly looked up with the serious expression she wore when processing difficult information. "My mommy died too," she said matter-of-factly. "But I still remember her hugs." Lauren's eyes filled with tears so quickly that Ethan almost reached across the table to comfort her. But she composed herself quickly, focusing on Mia with genuine compassion. "I remember my mother's hugs too," she said softly. "They're special, aren't they? The kind of hugs that make everything feel okay." Mia nodded solemnly. "Daddy gives good hugs too, but they're different. Mommy hugs were soft and smelled like flowers. Daddy hugs are strong and smell like—" She paused, considering. "Like home." Ethan felt his throat close up with emotion. How had his 6-year-old become so wise about love and loss, and the different ways people could matter to each other? Lauren reached across the table and gently squeezed Mia's small hand. "Your daddy does seem like he'd give excellent hugs," she agreed. And I think you're very lucky to have each other. We are lucky, Mia said with the confidence of someone who'd learned to find joy in small things. Even when we're sad about Mommy, we still have lots of good stuff. The simple wisdom of her daughter's words settled over Ethan like a warm blanket. They did have lots of good stuff. They had each other, they had their small but comfortable apartment, they had Jamie and Mrs. Rodriguez, and even Tony and the guys at work who looked out for them. And now maybe they had Lauren. Would you like to see dessert menus? Rosa appeared at their table, tactfully giving them a moment to recover from the emotional turn of the conversation. Yes, please, Lauren said, wiping discreetly at her eyes. I have a feeling someone at this table might be interested in chocolate. Me! Mia raised her hand enthusiastically, the heavy moment passing as quickly as it had arrived. They shared a chocolate lava cake that was ridiculously decadent and made Mia's eyes go wide with delight. Lauren insisted on taking pictures of Mia's chocolate-covered grin, and somehow Ethan found himself relaxed enough to join in when she suggested a group selfie. As the evening wound down and the restaurant began to empty around them, Ethan realized he didn't want it to end. For 3 hours, he'd felt like a different version of himself, not just Mia's father or Sarah's widower or the guy who worried about paying the electric bill, but a man interesting enough to hold the attention of someone extraordinary. This has been wonderful, Lauren said as Rosa brought the check. She placed her credit card on the table before Ethan could even reach for his wallet. Thank you both for sharing your evening with me. Thank you for dinner, Ethan said, not bothering to fight her over the bill. He was learning to recognize when grace meant accepting generosity rather than insisting on pride. Can we do this again sometime? Mia asked, with the directness that adults spent years trying to reclaim. Lauren's smile could have powered the entire restaurant. I would love that. If your daddy says it's okay. All eyes turned to Ethan, and he felt the weight of the moment. This wasn't just about dinner anymore. This was about opening their small, carefully protected world to someone new, someone who came with complications and possibilities in equal measure. I'd like that too, he said finally, and meant it completely. The drive home was quieter than the trip to the restaurant. Mia dozed in her booster seat, exhausted by the excitement of the evening, while Lauren navigated Portland's Friday night traffic with easy confidence. The silence between them wasn't awkward, but comfortable, the kind that developed between people who'd shared something meaningful. She's remarkable, Lauren said softly, glancing at Mia in the rearview mirror. You're raising an incredible little girl. She's pretty amazing, Ethan agreed. She's been through so much, but she still finds ways to be happy. I learn from her every day. It shows. The way you two are together, it's something special. They pulled into the parking lot of Ethan's apartment complex, and Lauren parked next to his pickup truck. The contrast between the vehicles felt symbolic, somehow two different worlds that had somehow found a way to occupy the same space. I should get her upstairs, Ethan said reluctantly. It's past her bedtime. Of course. Lauren turned in her seat to face him. Ethan, I want you to know tonight wasn't charity or curiosity about how the other half lives. I genuinely enjoyed every minute of it. So did I, he said honestly. More than I've enjoyed anything in a long time. Good. She reached over and squeezed his hand briefly. I'll call you tomorrow if that's okay. Maybe we can figure out something fun to do with Mia this weekend. She'd love that. And so would I. As he carried his sleeping daughter up the stairs to their apartment, Ethan felt something he'd almost forgotten existed. Anticipation for the future. For the first time since Sarah's death, he was looking forward to what might come next, instead of just trying to survive each day as it arrived. Jamie was waiting up, of course, curled on their couch with a book and a cup of tea. She looked up expectantly as Ethan settled Mia into bed, still wearing her purple dress, because he didn't have the heart to wake her up to change clothes. "So," Jamie whispered as he returned to the living room. "So what? Don't play dumb with me. How was it?" Ethan sank onto the couch beside his sister, suddenly aware of how tired he was. But it was a good tired, the kind that came from an evening well spent rather than a day endured. "It was perfect," he said simply. "She's not what I expected." "What did you expect?" "I don't know, someone more removed formal. But she's genuine, Jamie. She really listened to Mia, asked her real questions, treated her like she mattered. And she didn't make me feel like a charity case, even though I'm sure she spent more on dinner than I make in a week." Jamie smiled knowingly. "You like her?" "Yeah, I like her. Which is terrifying because what could she possibly see in a guy like me long term?" "Maybe the same thing Mia sees in you," Jamie suggested gently. "A good man who loves deeply and protects the people he cares about." "That's a nice thought, but nothing. Ethan, you've been hiding behind your circumstances for 2 years. Yes, money is tight. Yes, single parenthood is hard. But you're more than your bank account or your work schedule. You're smart and kind and incredibly strong. If she can't see that she's not worth your time." Ethan wanted to argue, to list all the reasons why a relationship between him and Lauren Bennett was impossible. But sitting in his quiet apartment, with the taste of good wine still on his lips, and the memory of Lauren's laughter echoing in his mind, those reasons felt less insurmountable than they had that morning. His phone buzzed with a text message. "From Lauren, thank you for a perfect evening. Sweet dreams to both of you." He showed the message to Jamie, who grinned triumphantly. "See? She's already thinking about you both. That's not charity, Ethan. That's genuine affection." As he got ready for bed that night, Ethan allowed himself to imagine what it might be like to build something real with Lauren. Not just the fantasy version where money didn't matter and social differences disappeared, but the actual messy, complicated, beautiful reality of two people from different worlds learning to love each other. It was a dangerous kind of hope, the kind that could leave him devastated if things didn't work out. But as he fell asleep to the sound of Mia's gentle breathing from the next room, Ethan decided that maybe, just maybe, it was worth the risk. After all the best things in his life, Mia, his marriage to Sarah, even his friendship with Tony and his relationship with Jamie had all required him to be vulnerable, to risk getting hurt in exchange for the possibility of something wonderful. Maybe Lauren Bennett was just the next beautiful risk he was meant to take. Saturday morning brought the kind of October sunshine that made Portland feel like the most beautiful city in the world. Ethan woke to the sound of Mia singing softly in her room, something she'd started doing again after years of quiet mornings following Sarah's death. The melody was unfamiliar, probably something she'd made up, but it filled their apartment with a lightness that had been missing for too long. His phone showed 3 missed messages, all from Lauren, sent early enough that she must have been awake before dawn. The first was a photo of the sunrise over what looked like the Willamette River with the caption, "Couldn't sleep. Kept thinking about chocolate lava cake and butterfly facts." The second was more practical. "Would you and Mia like to go to the Saturday market today? I haven't been in years." The third, sent just 20 minutes ago, "Sorry for the early texts. Call when you're both ready for the day." Ethan found himself smiling as he read the messages. There was something endearingly normal about Lauren's inability to sleep after their dinner, about her desire to spend a Saturday morning at Portland's famous outdoor market. It made her seem less like a billionaire heiress and more like a woman who'd had a good first date and wanted to see what came next. "Daddy!" Mia appeared in his doorway, still in her pajamas but wide awake. Can we call Lauren? I want to tell her about my butterfly dream. She actually just texted us. She wants to know if we'd like to go to the Saturday market. Mia's face lit up like Christmas morning. The one with all the food trucks and the people who make jewelry? That's the one. Can we go? Please, I want to show Lauren the man who makes glass butterflies. An hour later, they were walking through the bustling crowds of the Portland Saturday market, and Ethan was discovering yet another side of Lauren Bennett. Gone was the elegant sophistication of the night before, replaced by jeans, sneakers, and a baseball cap that she wore pulled low over her face. She looked like any other Portland resident enjoying their weekend, except for the occasional double take from passers-by, who thought they recognized her but couldn't quite place where. I used to come here with my mother, Lauren explained as they wandered between vendor stalls selling everything from handmade soaps to vintage vinyl records. She said it was important to support local artists and small businesses. After she died, my father thought it was too common, I suppose, but I loved it here. It's not common, Mia declared with the firm conviction of someone who considered the Saturday market one of life's great treasures. It's magical. You're absolutely right, Lauren agreed seriously. I was wrong to stay away so long. They spent the morning exploring every corner of the market. Lauren bought a hand-knitted scarf from an elderly woman who recognized her and whispered a blessing in what sounded like Russian. Mia insisted on showing Lauren every single butterfly-related item they encountered, from painted silk scarves to garden sculptures to the glass butterfly maker she'd mentioned. These are incredible, Lauren said, watching the artist heat and shape molten glass into delicate wings. How long does each one take? About 2 hours from start to finish, the craftsman replied, clearly pleased by her genuine interest. Each one is completely unique. No two butterflies are exactly alike, just like in nature. That's beautiful, Lauren murmured, and Ethan could see her filing away the information, probably already thinking about how to incorporate such artists into whatever projects Bennett Industries might have in development. They ate lunch from food trucks, Korean tacos for the adults, mac and cheese with extra cheese for Mia, and found a spot on the grass near the river to enjoy their meal. The afternoon was warm enough that other families had had the same idea, spreading blankets and letting their children run freely while keeping one eye on the water. This is nice, Lauren said, watching Mia chase a butterfly that had landed near their picnic spot. I'd forgotten what it felt like to just be somewhere without an agenda. What's your weekend usually like? Ethan asked, genuinely curious about the rhythms of her life. Board meetings disguised as brunches, charity events that are really networking opportunities, family dinners where we discuss quarterly reports instead of how our days went. She paused, seeming to consider her words carefully. Don't get me wrong, I'm grateful for the opportunities I have. But sometimes I wonder what it would be like to have a weekend that was just a weekend. Well, Ethan said, gesturing around them at the families enjoying the afternoon. This is what weekends look like in my world. Farmers markets, parks, maybe a movie if we can swing it. Nothing very glamorous. It's perfect, Lauren said softly, and something in her voice made him believe she meant it. As the afternoon wore on, Ethan found himself relaxing in ways he hadn't in months. Watching Lauren with Mia was like seeing his daughter through new eyes. When Mia peppered a potter with questions about how clay became bowls, Lauren listened with the same attention she'd probably give to a board presentation. When Mia spotted a small dog and asked if she could pet it, Lauren struck up a conversation with the owner that revealed she'd grown up with rescue dogs, but hadn't had time for a pet as an adult. Why don't you get one now? Mia asked with the practical directness that never failed to cut through adult complications. I travel too much for work, Lauren explained. It wouldn't be fair to a dog to leave them alone so often. You could get a cat, Mia suggested, Mrs. Rodriguez says cats are more independent, but they still like to be loved. Lauren's smile was soft and a little sad. Mrs. Rodriguez sounds very wise. She is. She makes the best empanadas, and she always remembers my birthday. The conversation drifted to other topics, but Ethan noticed Lauren filing away information about Mia's neighborhood relationships, the small community that had grown around their apartment complex. He was beginning to recognize the way her mind worked, always processing, always looking for connections and patterns, but not in a calculating way. More like someone who genuinely wanted to understand how the world fit together. They were walking back toward the parking area when disaster struck in the form of a photographer with a telephoto lens lurking behind a food truck. The camera clicked rapidly as he captured shots of Lauren, Ethan, and Mia together, and Ethan felt his stomach drop as he realized what this meant. Lauren Bennett enjoying a romantic afternoon with her mystery man and his daughter, the photographer called out, lowering his camera with a satisfied grin. Care to comment on your new relationship? Lauren went very still beside him, her entire body tensing, like a deer caught in headlights. But before she could respond, Mia stepped forward with the fearless confidence that only 6-year-olds possessed. "That's not nice," she said firmly, looking directly at the photographer. "You shouldn't take pictures of people without asking." "Kid's got a point," said a man selling handmade candles from a nearby stall. "This is private property, buddy. Market rules say no unauthorized photography." Other vendors began to gather, clearly protective of their community and unimpressed by the intrusion. The photographer, suddenly outnumbered and faced with a growing crowd of disapproving Portland locals, decided discretion was the better part of valor. "This is news, lady," he called out to Lauren as he backed away. "People are going to want to know about your new boy toy." The crude comment made Ethan see red, but before he could step forward, Lauren placed a gentle hand on his arm. "He's not worth it," she said quietly. "And this isn't Mia's fault or your fault. I should have been more careful." As they walked back to Lauren's car in subdued silence, Ethan felt the magical quality of their afternoon slowly deflating. Reality was reasserting itself, the reality of Lauren's public life, of the scrutiny that followed her everywhere, of the impossible complications that came with caring about someone who lived in the public eye. "I'm sorry," Lauren said once they were in the car with Mia safely buckled into her booster seat. "I didn't think I should have realized that someone might recognize me." "It's not your fault," Ethan replied, though he could already feel anxiety gnawing at his chest. What would happen when those photos showed up online or in magazines? What would his coworkers think? What would the school say when other parents saw pictures of Mia with Portland's most famous heiress, Daddy? Mia's small voice from the back seat cut through his spiraling thoughts. "Are you mad at Lauren?" "No, sweetheart. I'm not mad at anyone." "Good," Mia said with the matter-of-fact tone she used when solving complex adult problems. "Because the man with the camera was mean, but Lauren didn't do anything wrong. She was just having fun with us." The simple wisdom of his daughter's observation made Ethan feel ashamed of his own reaction. Mia was right, Lauren had done nothing wrong. She'd simply tried to enjoy a normal Saturday afternoon, and some photographer had turned it into a spectacle. "You're absolutely right," he said, catching Lauren's eyes in the rearview mirror. "Lauren didn't do anything wrong." Lauren's grateful smile was visible even in the mirror, and Ethan felt some of the tension ease from his shoulders. Whatever complications this might create, they'd figure it out. Together. The drive back to his apartment was quiet, but not uncomfortably so. Mia dozed in her seat, exhausted by the day's adventures, while Lauren navigated traffic with the same easy competence she seemed to bring to everything. Ethan found himself studying her profile, the way she bit her lower lip slightly when concentrating, the graceful way her hands moved on the steering wheel. What are you thinking about? Lauren asked softly, not taking her eyes off the road, but somehow sensing his attention. You, he admitted. How you handled that photographer. How you've handled everything today. I've had practice dealing with unwanted attention. It comes with the territory. That doesn't make it right. No, she agreed. It doesn't. But it's part of my reality. And if we... She paused, seeming to choose her words carefully. If this continues, it might become part of your reality too. I need you to understand that. The weight of her words settled over him like a heavy blanket. Dating Lauren Bennett wouldn't just mean navigating the usual complications of blending families and building relationships. It would mean exposure scrutiny, having every aspect of his and Mia's life examined by strangers with cameras and keyboards. I won't let that happen to Mia, he said firmly. I wouldn't want you to, Lauren replied immediately. Her privacy and safety are more important than anything else. But Ethan, I need to know, is this something you can handle, because I understand if it's not. I understand if this is too complicated for what you want in your life. It was the question he'd been dreading and hoping she wouldn't ask, because he wasn't sure he knew the answer. Part of him wanted to say yes immediately, to declare that no amount of public attention could keep him away from her. But the practical part of his brain, the part that had been responsible for Mia's well-being for 2 years, was already cataloging potential problems and protective strategies. I don't know, he said honestly. But I know I don't want this to be over. Not yet. Lauren's smile was visible in the reflection of the passenger window. Not yet, she agreed softly. They pulled into his apartment complex just as the sun was beginning to set, painting the aging building in forgiving golden light. Lauren helped transfer Mia's sleeping form from the car to Ethan's arms, her movements careful and quiet, to avoid waking the exhausted little girl. Today was wonderful, Lauren whispered as they stood by the trunk of her car. Even with the photographer, especially with everything else. For me too, Ethan said, adjusting Mia's weight in his arms. What happens now? Lauren considered the question seriously. Now I go home and call my publicist and try to get ahead of whatever story that photographer is planning to sell. And you go upstairs and put that beautiful little girl to bed, and don't worry about anything else tonight. What about tomorrow? Tomorrow, I'd like to take you both to brunch if you're free. Somewhere more private this time. I know a place. The fact that she was already thinking about tomorrow, already planning their next time together, despite the complications that had just arisen, sent warmth spreading through Ethan's chest. We'd like that, he said. Lauren stepped closer, close enough that he could smell her perfume and see the flecks of gold in her dark eyes. For a moment, he thought she might kiss him, and his heart rate picked up in anticipation. Instead, she reached out and gently brushed a strand of hair away from Mia's sleeping face. She's so beautiful, Lauren murmured. You're both so beautiful. Then she was stepping back, putting safe distance between them again, but the moment hung in the air like a promise. I'll call you tomorrow morning, she said. Sweet dreams. Ethan carried Mia upstairs, his mind replaying every moment of the day. As he tucked her into bed, still wearing her clothes from their adventure, she stirred slightly and opened her eyes. Did Lauren go home? She asked sleepily. Yes, sweetheart. She'll see us tomorrow. Good, Mia mumbled, already drifting back to sleep. I like her, Daddy. She makes you happy. The simple observation hit him like a physical blow. He'd been so focused on the complications and potential problems that he'd almost missed the most important thing. Lauren did make him happy. For the first time in 2 years, he'd spent an entire day feeling genuinely joyful instead of just going through the motions of living. His phone buzzed with a text message as he was getting ready for bed. From Lauren, thank you for today. Thank you for letting me be part of your world, even for a little while. He typed back, thank you for making our world bigger. Her response came immediately, sweet dreams, Ethan, to both of you. But sleep didn't come easily that night. Instead, Ethan lay awake staring at the ceiling and thinking about the photographer's camera, about the implications of being linked romantically with one of the wealthiest women in the Pacific Northwest. Would it affect his job? His relationship with Mia's school, their quiet life in the apartment complex, where Mrs. Rodriguez made empanadas and everyone knew everyone else's business. More importantly, what did Lauren really want from him? Was this genuine attraction, or was she going through some kind of phase where she wanted to experience how the other half lived? And even if her feelings were real, could a relationship between them possibly work long-term? His phone buzzed again around midnight. Another text from Lauren, I can't sleep. Keep thinking about how natural today felt. How right. Despite his anxiety, Ethan found himself smiling in the darkness. I know the feeling. Are you worried about the photographer? A little, he admitted. More worried about what all this means for Mia. We'll figure it out, Lauren replied. Together, if you want to. I want to, he typed before he could second-guess himself. Good. Me too. Now try to get some sleep. You too. The next morning brought an unwelcome surprise in the form of Tony standing at Ethan's door at 7 a.m. with a cup of coffee and a knowing grin. Dude, Tony said, pushing his way into the apartment. You are not going to believe what I just saw on Instagram. Ethan's stomach dropped. What are you talking about? Tony pulled out his phone and showed him a grainy photo that was clearly taken from a distance. It showed Lauren, Ethan, and Mia walking hand in hand through the Saturday market, all three of them laughing at something. The caption read, Portland's most eligible billionaire bachelorette, spotted with mystery man and his adorable daughter at the Saturday market. Is Lauren Bennett finally ready to settle down? It's already got like 50,000 likes, Tony said, clearly impressed. And the comments are going crazy trying to figure out who you are. Ethan sank onto his couch, suddenly feeling like the walls of his carefully constructed life were closing in around him. This is a disaster. Are you kidding? This is awesome. You're dating a billionaire man. Do you know how cool that makes you? I'm not dating her for her money, Tony. I know that. But still, Lauren Bennett, I mean, she's gorgeous and smart and rich, and she chose you. That's like winning the lottery and the Nobel Prize at the same time. It's not that simple. Tony sat down beside him, his expression growing more serious. Okay, talk to me. What's really going on here? Ethan told him everything about the coffee shop encounter, about dinner at Antonio's, about yesterday's perfect afternoon that had ended with a photographer turning their private moment into public entertainment. Tony listened without interrupting, his expression growing more thoughtful as the story unfolded. So let me get this straight, Tony said when Ethan finished. You met an amazing woman who likes you and Mia, who treats you both with respect and kindness, who wants to spend time with you, despite the fact that she could probably date anyone in the world. And your problem with this is, what exactly? My problem is that this puts Mia in the spotlight. My problem is that I work construction and she runs a billion-dollar company. My problem is that we live in completely different worlds and I don't know how to navigate hers. So learn, Tony said simply. Look, man, I get that this is scary, but you've been hiding in your grief for 2 years, using Mia as an excuse not to take any risks with your own happiness. This woman could be the best thing that's ever happened to both of you, and you're already looking for reasons to run away." The accusation stung because it contained more than a grain of truth. Ethan had been hiding using single parenthood and financial stress as shields against the possibility of being hurt again. "What if it doesn't work out?" he asked quietly. "What if it does?" Tony countered. "What if she's exactly what you and Mia need? What if you're exactly what she needs? Are you really going to throw that away because you're scared?" Before Ethan could answer, Mia emerged from her bedroom, still in her pajamas, but wide awake and apparently having heard at least part of their conversation. "Uncle Tony," she said, launching herself at Tony for a hug. "Did you come to see pictures of our day with Lauren?" "I saw some pictures," Tony said carefully, glancing at Ethan. "Did you have fun?" "The best time," Mia declared. "Lauren bought me a glass butterfly, and she knew all about the Korean tacos, and she said I could call her anytime I wanted to talk about butterflies or anything else." "She sounds pretty great," Tony said seriously. "She is great," Mia confirmed. "And she makes Daddy smile the real way, not the pretend way he does when he thinks I'm not looking." Ethan felt heat rise in his cheeks. How had his 6-year-old become so perceptive about his emotional state? "The pretend way?" Tony asked, clearly enjoying Ethan's discomfort. "You know," Mia explained patiently, "when grown-ups smile with just their mouth but not their eyes. Daddy does that a lot. But with Lauren, he smiles with his whole face." "That's a very important distinction," Tony agreed solemnly. Ethan's phone rang before he could formulate a response to his daughter's uncomfortably accurate observation. Lauren's name appeared on the screen, and he felt his heart rate pick up immediately. "Hi," he said, walking toward the kitchen for some privacy. "Good morning." Lauren's voice was warm but careful. "I hope I didn't wake you." "Not at all. We're up early around here." "Ethan, I need to tell you something. My publicist called this morning. The photos from yesterday are starting to circulate online. It's nothing too invasive yet, but people are speculating about who you are and what our relationship is." "I know. My friend Tony just showed me." "I'm sorry. I know this isn't what you signed up for." Ethan glanced back at the living room where Tony and Mia were deep in conversation about something that was making them both giggle. His daughter looked happy and animated in a way she hadn't in months. When was the last time she'd had this many adults in her life who genuinely cared about her happiness? "Lauren," he said quietly, "about brunch today. If you want to cancel, I understand completely. This attention isn't fair to you or Mia." "I don't want to cancel," he said, surprising himself with the firmness in his voice. "But maybe we could have it here instead. I could cook for you for once." The silence on the other end of the line stretched long enough that Ethan began to worry he'd overstepped somehow. When Lauren finally spoke, her voice was soft with something that might have been relief. "I would love that," she said. "More than you know." "Good. How do you feel about pancakes?" "They're pretty much the only thing I can make that consistently turns out edible." Lauren's laugh was like music. "I love pancakes. What can I bring?" "Just yourself, and maybe your appetite." "I'll be there at 11 if that works." "Perfect." After they hung up, Ethan returned to the living room to find Tony and Mia plotting what sounded suspiciously like a scheme to redecorate the apartment before Lauren's arrival. "We need flowers," Mia was saying seriously. "And maybe some of those candles that smell good." "And you should probably clean the bathroom," Tony added helpfully. "Women notice that stuff." "The bathroom is clean," Ethan protested. "Clean and clean for a woman you're trying to impress are two very different things," Tony said with the authority of someone who'd been married for 8 years. Despite his protests, Ethan found himself accepting help from both Tony and Mia in preparing for Lauren's visit. Tony ran to the grocery store for fresh flowers and the ingredients for what he claimed was the world's best pancake recipe. Mia appointed herself interior decorator, rearranging furniture, and insisting that her butterfly drawings be prominently displayed so Lauren can see my art collection. "You really like her, don't you?" Ethan asked as they worked together to make the apartment as welcoming as possible. "She's nice," Mia said simply. "And she listens when I talk, not like she's waiting for me to stop so she can say something else. She listens like what I'm saying is important." The observation hit Ethan like a gut punch. How many adults in Mia's life actually listened to her that way? How many people treated a 6-year-old's thoughts and observations as genuinely valuable? "That is important," he agreed. "What you have to say is always important." "I know," Mia said with matter-of-fact confidence. "But not everyone knows that. Lauren does." By the time Lauren arrived at 11, the apartment had been transformed. Fresh flowers sat on the kitchen table, the living room furniture had been arranged to maximize conversation space, and the bathroom had indeed been cleaned to Tony's exacting standards. Most importantly, the smell of pancake batter and bacon filled the air with the kind of domestic comfort that turned a house into a home. "Something smells incredible," Lauren said as Ethan opened the door. She was wearing jeans and a simple sweater, her hair pulled back in a casual ponytail, but she still managed to look effortlessly elegant. "That's Tony's secret pancake recipe," Ethan explained. "He refused to leave until he'd supervised the batter preparation." "Smart man. Is he still here?" "He left about 10 minutes ago, but not before making me promise to save him some pancakes." Lauren stepped inside and Ethan watched her take in the small apartment with what appeared to be genuine pleasure. Her gaze lingered on Mia's artwork covering the refrigerator, on the cozy living room arrangement, on the small touches that made the space feel lived in and loved. "It's perfect," she said softly. "It feels like home." "Lauren?" Mia came running from her bedroom wearing what Ethan recognized as her second favorite dress and carrying a manila folder. "I made something for you." "You did." Lauren knelt down to Mia's level with the same attention she'd shown from the beginning. "What is it?" Mia opened the folder to reveal a carefully drawn picture of 3 stick figures holding hands in front of what was clearly meant to be the Saturday market. One figure had long dark hair and was labeled Lauren. Another had short hair and was labeled Daddy, and the smallest figure had curly hair and was labeled Me. Above them all, Mia had drawn what appeared to be several butterflies with rainbow wings. "It's us yesterday," Mia explained proudly. "Before the mean man with the camera. I wanted you to remember the good part." Lauren's eyes filled with tears as she studied the drawing. "Mia, this is the most beautiful thing anyone has ever given me. May I keep it forever. Of course I made it just for you. Then I'm going to treasure it always," Lauren said, pulling Mia into a gentle hug. "Thank you for helping me remember that the good parts are what matter most." Ethan felt his throat tighten watching the interaction. There was nothing performative about Lauren's response to his daughter's gift. Her gratitude was completely genuine, her affection unmistakable. Whatever her motivations for wanting to spend time with them, her care for Mia was real. Breakfast was a revelation in domestic normalcy. Lauren insisted on helping with the cooking, and it turned out she had strong opinions about the proper pancake flipping technique. Mia appointed herself quality control supervisor, sampling each batch and providing detailed feedback on texture and flavor. The kitchen, which had always felt slightly too small for 2 people, somehow accommodated all 3 of them with surprising ease. "These are incredible," Lauren said, cutting into her third pancake. Tony's recipe. Tony's recipe. But I think the secret ingredient is the company, Ethan replied. Then immediately felt self-conscious about how sentimental that sounded. Definitely the company, Lauren agreed, smiling at him across the table in a way that made his pulse quicken. After breakfast, while Mia was occupied with showing Lauren her extensive collection of library books about butterflies, Ethan's phone rang. The caller ID showed his sister's number. I need to take this, he said, stepping into the bedroom for privacy. Have you seen the internet today? Jamie asked without preamble. Some of it. Why? Because your mystery woman just became significantly less mysterious. Ethan, do you have any idea who you're dating? I know exactly who I'm dating. Do you? Because according to People magazine's website, you're dating the heir to a Fortune 500 company who sits on the board of 3 major charities and once dated a European prince. She dated a prince. Despite everything, Ethan found himself curious about this detail. That's what you're focusing on, Ethan. This woman is worth more money than most countries, and now there are photos of her holding Mia's hand circulating on social media with speculation about whether she's ready to become a stepmother. The word stepmother hit Ethan like a physical blow. Not because the idea was unwelcome, but because it forced him to confront how quickly his feelings for Lauren had developed, how easily he could imagine her becoming a permanent part of their lives. Jamie, I need you to understand something, he said quietly. I know this is complicated. I know there are a million reasons why it shouldn't work. But she makes me happy, and she makes Mia happy, and she's genuinely one of the kindest people I've ever met. I'm not saying she's not. Jamie replied, her tone gentling. I'm just saying that you need to be prepared for what comes with dating someone that public. Are you ready for photographers following you to work? For strangers commenting on your relationship online? For Mia to potentially be in the spotlight? I don't know, Ethan admitted, but I know I'm not ready to walk away from her yet. Then you better figure it out fast, Jamie said gently. Because from what I'm seeing online, this story is just getting started. When Ethan returned to the living room, he found Lauren and Mia deep in conversation about metamorphosis, with Mia explaining her theory that butterflies probably got scared during the cocoon phase because they didn't know they were going to become something beautiful. That's a very wise observation, Lauren was saying seriously. Sometimes the scariest changes turn out to be the most wonderful ones. Like when Daddy was scared to call you, but then we had the best dinner ever, Mia said matter-of-factly. Lauren's eyes found Ethan's across the room, and something passed between them. Understanding maybe, or recognition of the moment they were both navigating. Exactly like that, Lauren agreed softly. The rest of the morning passed in comfortable domesticity. They played board games that Lauren had clearly never experienced before, but approached with competitive enthusiasm. They watched one of Mia's favorite movies, an animated film about a young girl who befriended a lost butterfly, and Lauren asked thoughtful questions about the plot points that Mia found most compelling. But underneath the surface normalcy, Ethan could feel the weight of the outside world pressing in. His phone buzzed periodically, with texts from coworkers who'd seen the photos online. The apartment complex parking lot seemed to have more cars than usual, and he'd noticed someone sitting in a sedan near the entrance who didn't appear to belong to any of the residents. Lauren, he said during a quiet moment when Mia was in the bathroom, I think we might have a problem. She followed his gaze toward the window, where the sedan was still parked, with its occupant clearly watching their building. Photographers, she said, with resigned familiarity. I should have expected this. What do we do? I can call my security team, have them cleared out. But Ethan, you need to understand this is just the beginning. If we continue seeing each other, this kind of attention is going to become routine. The weight of that reality settled over him like a heavy blanket. Was he really prepared to have his and Mia's every move scrutinized by strangers with cameras? Was he ready to give up their quiet, anonymous life for the possibility of something extraordinary with Lauren? "I need some time to think," he said, honestly. Lauren's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes that might have been disappointment or hurt. "Of course, this is a lot to process. It's not that I don't want—" Ethan started, then stopped, unsure how to finish the sentence. "I know," Lauren said gently, "and I don't want you to feel pressured into something you're not ready for. Mia's well-being has to come first. I understand that completely." But when Mia returned from the bathroom and threw her arms around Lauren for what had become their customary hug, Ethan saw his daughter's face light up with pure joy. How long had it been since Mia had had a woman in her life who showed her this kind of attention and affection? How long since she'd had someone besides him to talk to about butterflies and dreams and all the things that mattered to a 6-year-old heart? "I should probably go," Lauren said, glancing toward the window where the sedan remained parked. "Give you both some space to process all of this." "Will we see you again soon?" Mia asked, and the hope in her voice nearly broke Ethan's heart. "I hope so, sweetheart," Lauren replied carefully. "But that's up to your daddy." All eyes turned to Ethan, and he felt the weight of the decision pressing down on him. Choose safety and anonymity, or choose the possibility of love with all its complications and risks. He looked at Mia's hopeful face, at Lauren's careful composure that didn't quite hide her vulnerability, at the drawing on his refrigerator showing 3 stick figures holding hands under rainbow butterflies. "Lauren," he said quietly, "would you like to have dinner again this week? Maybe somewhere more private this time?" Her smile was worth every risk he was taking. "I'd love that," she said softly. "I know just the place." The private dinner Lauren had promised turned out to be at her own home, a sprawling estate in the West Hills that took Ethan's breath away as they drove through the security gates. The house itself was a masterpiece of modern architecture, all clean lines and floor-to-ceiling windows that offered stunning views of the city below. But what struck Ethan most wasn't the obvious wealth on display. It was how empty it felt, like a beautiful museum where no one actually lived. "It's big," Mia observed from her booster seat, her nose pressed against the car window as they approached the circular driveway. "It is big," Lauren agreed, and Ethan caught something wistful in her voice. "Sometimes I think it's too big." She'd picked them up herself this time, driving a more modest SUV instead of the Tesla, and had spent the drive explaining that her usual housekeeper had prepared dinner before leaving for the evening to give them complete privacy. No photographers, no staff, no interruptions, just the 3 of them in a space where Lauren could be completely herself. The interior of the house was as stunning as its exterior, but Lauren led them quickly past the formal living areas to a more intimate space at the back of the house. The family room, she called it, though Ethan couldn't help noticing that it looked like it had rarely been used for actual family gatherings. The kitchen adjoining it, however, was clearly Lauren's domain, warm and lived in, with copper pots hanging from hooks and herbs growing in small pots on the windowsill. "This is where I actually spend most of my time," Lauren explained, seeming to read his thoughts. "The rest of the house is for entertaining business associates and hosting charity events. This is just mine." "I like it better," Mia announced, climbing onto one of the bar stools at the kitchen island. "It feels cozy." Lauren's smile was radiant. "I'm so glad you think so. Would you like to help me finish making dinner? I was hoping you might want to learn how to make homemade pasta." For the next hour, Ethan watched Lauren teach his daughter the ancient art of pasta making, with infinite patience and genuine delight. Mia's first attempts at rolling dough resulted in shapes that bore little resemblance to fettuccine, but Lauren praised each effort enthusiastically while gently showing her how to improve her technique. "You're a natural," Lauren said, as Mia finally produced a reasonably uniform noodle. "It took me months to learn what you just figured out in an hour." "Really?" Mia's face glowed with pride. "Really? You have excellent hands for this kind of work." Ethan found himself leaning against the counter, content to watch the two most important women in his world bond over something as simple as flour and eggs. The domestic scene felt so natural, so right, that he almost forgot about the complications waiting for them beyond these walls. Almost. His phone had been buzzing periodically all week, with calls from reporters and requests for interviews. His foreman, Jimmy, had taken him aside on Tuesday to warn him that photographers had been spotted near the construction site. Even Mrs. Rodriguez had mentioned seeing strangers asking questions about him and Mia in the apartment complex lobby. But here in Lauren's kitchen, watching her show Mia how to twirl pasta around a fork, those external pressures felt distant and manageable. "Penny for your thoughts," Lauren said softly, appearing beside him with a glass of wine while Mia was occupied with carefully arranging napkins on the dining table. "Just thinking about how natural this feels," Ethan admitted. "You with her, I mean, like you've been doing it for years." Lauren's cheeks flushed slightly. "I've wanted to spend time with children for so long, but my life never seemed to have room for it. Being with Mia, it's showing me what I've been missing. She adores you. The feeling is mutual." Lauren's eyes found Mia across the room. "She's remarkable, Ethan. So bright and curious and kind. You're raising an extraordinary human being." The simple pride in Lauren's voice, the genuine affection she felt for his daughter, made something warm bloom in Ethan's chest. This wasn't charity or novelty. Lauren truly cared about Mia, as an individual valued her thoughts and personality in a way that had nothing to do with her connection to Ethan. Dinner was a revelation of intimacy. They ate at a small table by the window, Portland's lights twinkling below them like earthbound stars. Lauren had prepared a simple meal, the pasta they'd made together, a salad from her garden bread that filled the house with the smell of comfort. But the conversation ranged from Mia's upcoming school play to Ethan's dreams of starting his own construction company to Lauren's struggles with balancing family expectations and personal desires. "My father started grooming me to take over Bennett Industries when I was Mia's age," Lauren said, twirling pasta around her fork with the expert technique she'd taught them. "Board meetings instead of sleepovers, business dinners instead of school plays. I always wondered what it would have been like to just be a regular kid." "What would you have done differently?" Mia asked with the direct curiosity that never failed to cut to the heart of adult complexities. Lauren considered the question seriously. "I would have spent more time making things with my hands like we did tonight. I would have had sleepovers and gone to summer camp and maybe learned to play an instrument just because I liked the sound it made." "It's not too late," Mia said, with the wisdom that only children possessed. "You could still do those things." "You know what? You're absolutely right," Lauren agreed, and something in her expression suggested she was filing away the idea for future consideration. As the evening progressed, Ethan found himself studying Lauren in this more intimate setting. Away from the public eye, away from the pressures of her corporate responsibilities, she seemed younger, somehow more spontaneous, more willing to be silly for Mia's entertainment. She made shadow puppets on the wall, with the dinner candles, challenged Mia to identify different pasta shapes by touch alone, and listened with rapt attention to a detailed explanation of why butterflies were superior to all other insects. They're beautiful, and they help flowers make more flowers, Mia concluded her presentation. And they start out as caterpillars, which means they know what it's like to be different things. That's a very profound observation, Lauren said seriously. I never thought about it that way before. Mia has a lot of profound observations, Ethan said, reaching over to smooth his daughter's hair. She's been my teacher for the past 2 years. What has she taught you? Lauren asked. Ethan looked at his daughter, who was now absorbed in trying to balance a spoon on her nose, and felt his throat tighten with emotion. That love doesn't have to be complicated. That it's okay to ask for help when you need it. That happiness comes from small moments, not big achievements. And that butterflies taste with their feet, Mia added without looking up from her spoon balancing attempt. They all laughed, and the sound filled the space with warmth that had probably been missing from Lauren's house for far too long. After dinner, Lauren insisted on showing them the rest of the house, and Ethan was struck by how many of the rooms felt like stage sets, beautiful but unlived in. The formal dining room that could seat 20 but probably hadn't hosted a family meal in years. The library filled with leather-bound books that looked like they'd never been opened. The elegant sitting rooms with furniture too pristine to have ever been used for actual sitting. It's like a museum, Mia whispered as they walked through yet another perfectly appointed but lifeless space. It does feel that way sometimes, Lauren admitted. My father hired decorators to make everything perfect, but perfect isn't always the same as comfortable. The master suite, when Lauren showed it to them, was the exception. Here, finally, was evidence of an actual person living an actual life. Books stacked on the nightstand, a laptop open on the desk, photographs scattered across the dresser, showing Lauren with various groups of people who looked like friends rather than business associates. Is that your mom? Mia asked, pointing to a framed photo of a younger Lauren with a woman who shared her dark eyes and elegant cheekbones. Yes, Lauren said softly. That was taken about a month before she died. We were on vacation in Italy, just the two of us, no business, no schedule. It was one of the best weeks of my life. She's beautiful, Mia observed. You look just like her. Thank you, sweetheart. That means a lot to me. Ethan studied the photograph over Mia's shoulder, noting the genuine happiness on both women's faces. It was the first picture he'd seen where Lauren looked completely unguarded, completely at peace. She would have loved you, Lauren said suddenly, her eyes finding his. Both of you. She always said that the most important thing in life was finding people who made you feel like the best version of yourself. The weight of that statement settled over them like a blessing. Before Ethan could respond, Mia yawned widely, reminding them all that it was well past her usual bedtime. Someone's getting sleepy, Lauren observed with a gentle smile. I'm not sleepy, Mia protested, then immediately contradicted herself with another enormous yawn. How about we get you home to your own bed? Ethan suggested, though he was reluctant to end the evening. Here in Lauren's private space, the outside world with all its complications felt very far away. Actually, Lauren said carefully, I have a guest room that's never been used. If you'd both like to stay, I'd love to make breakfast in the morning, but only if you're comfortable with that. Ethan felt his pulse quicken. Staying overnight would cross another line in their relationship, move them into territory that felt both thrilling and terrifying. But looking at Mia, who was practically swaying on her feet, and at Lauren, whose expression held hope and vulnerability in equal measure, the decision felt inevitable. I don't have pajamas or a toothbrush, he said, which wasn't really a no. I have spare toothbrushes, Lauren said quickly, and I'm sure I can find something for you both to sleep in. Please, Daddy, Mia added her voice to the campaign. It's like a sleepover. When was the last time his daughter had been excited about a sleepover? When was the last time he'd allowed himself the luxury of spontaneity? "Okay," he heard himself say. "We'd love to stay." Lauren's smile could have lit up the entire house. The guest room turned out to be a suite nearly the size of Ethan's entire apartment, with a king-sized bed that looked like something from a luxury hotel and a bathroom that belonged in a spa. Lauren provided them with soft cotton pajamas that probably cost more than Ethan's weekly grocery budget and enough spare toiletries to stock a small pharmacy. "This is the biggest bed I've ever seen," Mia announced, bouncing experimentally on the mattress. "It's like sleeping on a cloud." "It is pretty comfortable," Ethan agreed, though he was more focused on the fact that he was about to spend the night under the same roof as Lauren Bennett. The thought sent equal measures of anticipation and anxiety coursing through his veins. After Mia was settled and had drifted off to sleep, almost immediately exhausted by the day's excitement, Ethan found himself alone in the luxurious guest bathroom, staring at his reflection in the mirror. What was he doing here? How had his quiet, carefully ordered life become this complicated tangle of feelings and possibilities? His phone buzzed with a text message from Jamie. "Saw the photos online from your pancake breakfast. You look happy." "Really happy. I am happy," he typed back. Also terrified. "That's normal." "Where are you now?" Ethan hesitated, then decided honesty was the best policy with his sister. "At Lauren's house. We're staying the night." The response came back immediately. "Details tomorrow. Be careful with your heart." "Too late for that," Ethan replied, and realized as he typed it that it was completely true. Somewhere between the coffee shop encounter and tonight's intimate dinner, he'd fallen completely and irrevocably in love with Lauren Bennett. The realization should have been terrifying, but instead, it felt like coming home. A soft knock on the guest room door interrupted his spinning thoughts. He opened it to find Lauren standing in the hallway, her hair down and wearing the kind of casual clothes that made her look young and approachable. "I wanted to make sure you had everything you needed," she said quietly, mindful of Mia sleeping nearby. "We're perfect," he assured her, then added, "Lauren, thank you. For tonight, for the way you are with Mia, for all of it. I know this can't be easy for you either." "Easy?" Lauren's laugh was soft but incredulous. "Ethan, this is the first time in years that anything in my life has felt real. Being with you and Mia, it's like I'm finally remembering who I used to be before I became Lauren Bennett, heiress and board member and public figure." They stood in the doorway, the space between them charged with everything they weren't quite ready to say. Ethan could smell her perfume, could see the flecks of gold in her dark eyes, could feel the magnetic pull that had been growing stronger every day since they'd met. "I should let you get some sleep," Lauren said finally, though she made no move to leave. "Lauren," Ethan said softly, "I need you to know something. Whatever happens with all the outside pressure and media attention, whatever complications come up because of who you are and who I'm not, none of that changes how I feel about you." "How do you feel about me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Ethan stepped closer, close enough to reach out and touch her face if he dared. "Like I've been waiting my whole life to meet you. Like you and Mia together are showing me what happiness really looks like." Lauren's eyes filled with tears. "I love her," she whispered. "I love both of you. I know it's too soon to say that, but I can't pretend anymore." "It's not too soon," Ethan said, reaching up to brush away a tear that had spilled down her cheek. "Because I love you too. Completely. Terrifyingly. With everything I have." The kiss that followed was inevitable, a meeting of lips that tasted like wine and possibility, and the promise of all the tomorrows they might build together. It was soft and tentative at first, then deeper, as Lauren's hands found the front of his borrowed pajama shirt and pulled him closer. When they finally broke apart, both of them were breathing hard, and Ethan had to resist the urge to pull her back into his arms immediately. "We should probably," he started. "Take this slow," Lauren finished, though her hands were still clutching his shirt. "For Mia's sake." "For Mia's sake," he agreed, though every fiber of his being was arguing against the wisdom of restraint. "Good night, Ethan," Lauren said, stepping backward into the hallway. "Good night," he replied, watching her until she disappeared around the corner toward the master suite. Ethan spent most of the night staring at the ceiling, his mind replaying every moment of the evening, and his body still humming with the memory of Lauren's kiss. When he finally dozed off near dawn, it was to dreams of butterfly gardens and pasta-making lessons, and Lauren's laugh echoing through rooms that had been too quiet for too long. He woke to the sound of voices in the kitchen, Lauren and Mia deep in conversation about the proper ratio of chocolate chips to pancake batter. Through the guest room window, Portland stretched out below them in the early morning light, and Ethan felt a moment of pure contentment that he wanted to hold on to forever. "Daddy?" Mia called out when she heard him moving around. "Lauren is making chocolate chip pancakes, and they're going to be even better than Uncle Tony's." "That's quite a claim," Ethan said, appearing in the kitchen doorway, to find flour dusting every surface, and both Lauren and Mia wearing matching aprons that were clearly designed for actual cooking rather than show. "We've been experimenting," Lauren explained, gesturing to what appeared to be several test batches cooling on wire racks. "Mia has very strong opinions about chocolate chip distribution patterns." "The chips have to be evenly spread out," Mia explained seriously. "Otherwise, some bites are just pancake and some bites are all chocolate, and that's not fair to your mouth." "Your daughter is a culinary philosopher," Lauren said, meeting Ethan's eyes with a smile that made his heart skip a beat. In the morning light, with flour in her hair and genuine joy on her face, she looked more beautiful than ever. Breakfast was another exercise in domestic bliss, with conversation flowing easily between discussions of Mia's upcoming school week and Lauren's plans for a new affordable housing initiative that Bennett Industries was considering. What struck Ethan most was how seamlessly their different worlds seemed to blend in these private moments, Lauren's business acumen and social consciousness mixing naturally with Mia's innocent wisdom and his own practical perspective. "I've been thinking about what you said," Lauren told Ethan, as Mia was occupied with making patterns in her syrup, "about wanting to start your own construction company focused on affordable housing. What would that look like, practically speaking?" "Well," Ethan said, settling back in his chair, "I'd need significant startup capital, which I don't have. Plus business licenses, insurance, probably a line of credit, and enough work lined up to keep a crew busy while building a reputation." "What about partnerships? Could you work with existing developers who share your vision?" "Maybe," Ethan said thoughtfully. "But most developers I know are focused on profit margins, not community impact." "Not all of them," Lauren said quietly. "Bennett Industries has been looking for the right partner to launch a new division focused on sustainable, affordable housing. Someone with real construction experience and a genuine commitment to building communities, not just structures." The implication hung in the air between them, like a bridge waiting to be crossed. Ethan felt his pulse quicken as he realized what Lauren might be suggesting. "Are you offering me a job?" he asked carefully. "I'm offering you an opportunity," Lauren corrected. "A chance to do the work you've always dreamed of doing, with the resources and support to do it right." "Daddy," Mia piped up, apparently having followed more of the conversation than they'd realized. That means you could build houses for families like ours, right? Families who need nice places to live. That's exactly what it means. Lauren confirmed, her eyes never leaving Ethan's face. The offer was everything Ethan had ever wanted, professionally wrapped up with the woman he was falling more in love with every day. It should have felt like a dream come true, but instead, anxiety began to gnaw at his stomach. "I need to think about it," he said finally. "Of course," Lauren said, though something flickered across her expression that might have been disappointment. "Take all the time you need." But even as she said it, Ethan could see the questions forming in her mind. Questions about whether he was hesitating because of the business opportunity itself, or because he was uncomfortable accepting help from her. Questions about whether his pride would always stand between them, preventing him from fully embracing what they could build together. The drive home was quieter than their previous trips together, with Mia dozing in the back seat, and both adults lost in their own thoughts. The city looked different in the morning light, more real, somehow, less forgiving than it had seemed from Lauren's hilltop sanctuary. As they pulled into the parking lot of Ethan's apartment complex, the contrast between Lauren's world and his own felt starker than ever. The aging buildings, the cracked pavement, the chain-link fence around the small playground, where Mia liked to swing it, all seemed smaller and shabbier than he remembered. "This is home," he said unnecessarily, suddenly aware of how it must look to someone accustomed to manicured lawns and panoramic views. "It's perfect," Lauren said firmly. "It's where you and Mia have built your life together. That makes it perfect." As they walked toward the building, Mrs. Rodriguez appeared from the lobby with Pepito on his leash. Her eyes widened as she took in Lauren, clearly recognizing her from the news coverage that had been increasing all week. "Buenos dias, Ethan," she said carefully, her gaze moving between him and Lauren with undisguised curiosity. "Mrs. Rodriguez, I'd like you to meet Lauren," Ethan said, making the introduction with more confidence than he felt. "Lauren, this is Mrs. Rodriguez. She's been like family to us since we moved here." Lauren stepped forward with the genuine warmth she'd shown from the beginning. "It's so nice to meet you, Mrs. Rodriguez. Mia has told me wonderful things about your empanadas." The older woman's face lit up with pleasure. "Ay, that niña, she is too kind. But you—" She studied Lauren with the shrewd assessment of someone who'd lived long enough to judge character quickly. "You make this man smile again. That is good. He has been too serious for too long. He's teaching me how to smile again, too," Lauren said softly, and Ethan felt his heart clench at the honesty in her voice. Mrs. Rodriguez nodded approvingly. "Bueno. Love should make people better, not smaller. I see you again soon, yes. I hope so," Lauren said, meaning it completely. As they climbed the stairs to Ethan's apartment, Mia between them chattering about all the things she wanted to show Lauren, next time Ethan felt the weight of decision pressing down on him. Lauren was offering him everything he'd ever wanted, professionally and personally. So why did accepting feel so complicated? "Lauren," he said, as they reached his door, "about what you said at breakfast." "You don't have to decide anything right now," she interrupted gently. "And you don't have to decide based on your feelings for me. This should be about what's right for your career, for your future." But that was the problem, wasn't it? His feelings for her were now inextricably tangled with every other aspect of his life. How could he separate the business opportunity from the personal relationship? How could he know whether he was being offered the partnership because of his qualifications, or because Lauren cared about him more importantly? Could he accept without feeling like he was somehow diminishing himself, becoming dependent on her wealth and connections, instead of building something on his own merit? "I'll call you later," he said, opening the apartment door and ushering Mia inside. "Of course." And Ethan? Lauren waited until he was looking at her fully. Whatever you decide about the business opportunity, it doesn't change anything between us. I hope you know that. After she left, Ethan sat in his quiet apartment and tried to untangle the mess of emotions churning in his chest. Pride warred with practicality. Love battled with logic, and through it all, Mia's voice echoed in his memory. You could build houses for families like ours, right? She was right, of course. This was an opportunity to do meaningful work to make a real difference in people's lives. But could he accept it without compromising his sense of self? Could he partner with Lauren professionally without damaging their personal relationship? His phone rang, interrupting his spiraling thoughts. The caller ID showed a number he didn't recognize. Hello? Mr. Cole. This is Rebecca Martinez from Channel 6 News. I'm doing a story about Portland's most eligible bachelorette and her new romance. Would you be available for an interview? Ethan hung up without responding, but the call served as a harsh reminder of the reality they were all living in now. The private cocoon of Lauren's house the night before felt like a distant memory, replaced by the stark awareness that their relationship was now public property. His phone rang again immediately, another reporter, then another. By the third call, Ethan had turned off his phone entirely, but the damage was done. The outside world had found them, and there was no going back to the simple, quiet life he'd built for himself and Mia. Looking out the window at the parking lot below, Ethan could see a van with news station logos parked near the entrance. A reporter was setting up equipment while a cameraman tested angles. Soon he knew they'd be knocking on doors, talking to neighbors, trying to construct a narrative about the construction worker who'd captured the heart of Portland's wealthiest heiress. The fairy tale was over. Now came the much harder work of figuring out how to build something real in the harsh light of public scrutiny. But as Mia emerged from her room with the glass butterfly, Lauren had bought her at the Saturday market, holding it up to catch the afternoon light streaming through their small window. Ethan felt his resolve strengthen. Whatever challenges lay ahead, whatever compromises or difficult decisions awaited them, he wasn't ready to give up on the possibility of love. Not when it had finally found him again. Not when it came in the form of a woman who made his daughter laugh and challenged him to dream bigger than he'd ever dared before. Not when it felt like the beginning of everything he'd never known he wanted. The road ahead would be complicated, but then again, the best things in life usually were. The crisis came on a Tuesday morning 3 weeks after the reporters had first discovered their story. Ethan was reviewing blueprints at the construction site when Jimmy appeared at his shoulder, his expression grim. "We need to talk," the foreman said quietly. "My office. Now." The walk across the job site felt like a death march. Ethan's co-workers avoided eye contact, their usual morning banter replaced by uncomfortable silence. In the trailer that served as the site office, Jimmy closed the door and gestured for Ethan to sit down. "I got a call from corporate this morning," Jimmy said without preamble. "About you." Ethan's stomach dropped. What kind of call? The kind where they're concerned about the company's image. Apparently, some of our clients aren't thrilled about having their construction projects associated with tabloid headlines about billionaire heiresses and their boy toys. The crude phrase made Ethan's hands clench into fists. "Is that what they called me?" "That's the nicest thing they called you." Jimmy said, his own anger evident. "Look, Ethan, you know I think this is all bullshit. You're one of the best workers I've ever supervised, and your personal life is none of anyone's damn business. But I'm getting pressure from above to let you go." The words hit Ethan like a physical blow. He'd expected complications from dating Lauren, but losing his job, losing his ability to provide for Mia, hadn't been one of them. "How long do I have?" he asked quietly. "End of the week," Jimmy said, his voice heavy with regret. I fought for you, man. But when clients start threatening to pull contracts, I understand, Ethan said, though understanding didn't make it hurt less. Thanks for the heads up. As he walked back to his truck, Ethan felt the familiar weight of financial panic settling over him like a heavy coat. No job meant no income, which meant no rent money, no grocery money, no way to maintain the stable life he'd fought so hard to build for Mia. The irony wasn't lost on him. Dating a billionaire was making him unemployable. His phone buzzed with a text from Lauren. Good morning, beautiful. Hope you and Mia have a wonderful day. For a moment, he considered not telling her what had happened. She was already dealing with enough pressure from her own board of directors, who apparently weren't thrilled about their heir's involvement with a single father from the wrong side of town. But secrets had no place in the relationship they were trying to build. Need to see you, he texted back. Something's happened. Her response came immediately. My place. Come now. The drive to Lauren's house gave Ethan time to think, but not enough time to figure out what he was going to say. How do you tell the woman you love that your association with her has cost you everything you've worked for? How do you explain that the very thing that makes you happy is also destroying your ability to provide for your child? Lauren met him at the door, still in her business attire from what must have been an early morning meeting. One look at his face told her everything she needed to know. What happened? She asked, pulling him inside. I lost my job, Ethan said simply. Because of us. Because of the media attention. Lauren's face went pale. Oh my God. Ethan, I'm so sorry. I never thought. It's not your fault, he said quickly, though part of him wondered if it was. If loving her was always going to come with consequences he couldn't afford. Of course it's my fault, Lauren said, her voice sharp with self-recrimination. I knew this could happen. I knew dating me would complicate your life, and I was selfish enough to pursue it anyway. Don't, Ethan said firmly. Don't do that. Don't turn this into something ugly when it's the most beautiful thing that's happened to me in years. But even as he said it, practical reality was asserting itself. No job meant no income. No income meant no apartment. No apartment meant no stable home for Mia. The spiral of consequences stretched out before him like a roadmap to disaster. The business partnership, Lauren said suddenly. Bennett Industries. We could accelerate the timeline, get you started immediately. No. The word came out harder than Ethan had intended, but the thought of accepting Lauren's help now, when he was desperate and had no other options, made his stomach turn. I won't be your charity case. It's not charity, Lauren said, her own voice rising with frustration. It's a legitimate business opportunity. You're qualified. You're passionate about the work. Am I qualified? Or am I the guy you're sleeping with who happens to work construction? The moment the words left his mouth, Ethan regretted them. He could see the hurt flash across Lauren's face, could see the way she stepped back, as if he'd physically struck her. Is that really what you think? She asked quietly. That I would compromise my family's business risk, everything my father built, just because I have feelings for you? I don't know what to think anymore, Ethan said, running his hands through his hair. 3 weeks ago, I had a job and a quiet life and a plan for taking care of my daughter. Now I have photographers following us to the grocery store and my boss telling me I'm too much of a liability to keep employed. So this is my fault. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. Lauren's voice was cool now, controlled in the way that spoke of years of boardroom negotiations and family disappointments. Let me be very clear about something, Ethan. I offered you that partnership because you're the most passionate, skilled, and principled construction professional I've ever met. Because your vision for affordable housing aligns perfectly with Bennett Industries' commitment to community development. Because you understand what it means to build homes, not just structures. Lauren, I'm not finished. Her dark eyes blazed with an intensity that reminded Ethan why she was successful in business as well as beautiful. Yes, I care about you. Yes, I love you and Mia more than I ever thought possible. But I would never, ever jeopardize my company's reputation or resources for personal reasons. The fact that you think I would tells me more about your opinion of me than I wanted to know. The accusation hung between them like a chasm. Ethan could see the hurt beneath Lauren's anger, could see how his words had cut deeper than he'd intended. But his own fear and frustration were too raw, too immediate, to let him back down gracefully. Maybe we should take a break, he heard himself say, until I figure out my situation. A break. Lauren's laugh was bitter. How convenient. When things get difficult, you run away. I'm not running away. I'm trying to protect my daughter. From what? From having people in her life who love her, from stability and opportunity, or are you protecting her from having a mother figure who might actually stay? The words hit their target with devastating accuracy. Ethan felt the truth of them settle in his chest like lead, heavy and undeniable. He was running away just as Lauren had said. Running from the possibility of being hurt, of losing someone he loved, of having to depend on anyone other than himself. I need time, he said weakly. Of course you do. Lauren walked to the door and opened it, her posture rigid with controlled emotion. Take all the time you need, Ethan. But don't expect me to wait around while you figure out whether loving me is worth the risk. The drive home was a blur of Portland traffic and racing thoughts. By the time Ethan reached his apartment complex, the full weight of what he'd just done was beginning to sink in. He'd pushed away the woman he loved, walked away from a business opportunity that could have secured his and Mia's future, all because his pride couldn't handle accepting help when he needed it most. Mrs. Rodriguez was in the lobby checking her mail when Ethan walked in. One look at his face was enough to make her abandon her correspondence and approach him with concern. Mijo, what happened? You look like someone died. I think I just made the biggest mistake of my life, Ethan said quietly. Ay, Dios mío. Come upstairs. I make café and you tell me everything. An hour later, sitting in Mrs. Rodriguez's small but immaculately kept apartment, while she fed him homemade flan and strong Cuban coffee, Ethan had spilled the entire story. His job loss, the fight with Lauren, his decision to take a break from their relationship, all of it poured out like a confession he'd been holding in for weeks. You're an idiot, Mrs. Rodriguez said, when he finished with the bluntness that only truly caring friends could get away with. Thank you for the honest assessment, Ethan said dryly. No, listen to me. She continued, leaning forward in her chair. I have lived 73 years on this earth. I have seen many kinds of love, many kinds of pride, many kinds of fear. You know what I learned? What? Pride is cold comfort when you're alone. And fear will steal everything good from your life if you let it. I'm trying to do what's best for Mia, Ethan protested. No, mijo, you're trying to do what feels safe for you. But safe isn't always what's best. That woman, Lauren, she loves you both. I see it in her eyes, in the way she talks to Mia, in the way she looks at you like you are the most important person in the world. You think maybe Mia doesn't need that kind of love in her life. The question hit Ethan like a slap. When had he become so focused on protecting Mia from potential loss that he'd forgotten about protecting her right to be loved? What if it doesn't work out? He asked quietly. What if it does? Mrs. Rodriguez countered. What if you and that little girl get to be part of something beautiful and you're too scared to find out? That evening, after Mia had gone to bed, Ethan sat in his living room staring at his phone. He'd composed and deleted dozens of text messages to Lauren, ranging from apologies to explanations to simple pleas for another chance. None of them felt adequate for the magnitude of his mistake. Instead, he called Jamie. "Please tell me you didn't actually break up with the best thing that's happened to you since Mia was born," his sister said without preamble. News travels fast. "Lauren called me," Jamie said. "She was crying, Ethan. Actually crying. She wanted to make sure you and Mia were okay. Wanted to know if there was anything she could do to help with your job situation." The information hit Ethan like a physical blow. Even after their fight, even after he'd essentially accused her of mixing business with personal feelings, Lauren's first concern was still his and Mia's well-being. "I screwed up," he admitted. "Monumentally," Jamie agreed. "But probably not irreversibly. The question is, what are you going to do about it?" That night, Ethan lay awake staring at the ceiling and thinking about butterflies. About Mia's theory that they probably got scared during the metamorphosis process, not knowing they were going to become something beautiful. About Lauren's observation that sometimes the scariest changes turned out to be the most wonderful ones. Maybe it was time to stop being afraid of transformation. The next morning brought an unexpected visitor in the form of Robert Bennett himself appearing at Ethan's door in a perfectly tailored suit that probably cost more than most people's cars. Lauren's father was exactly what Ethan had expected, imposing, successful and clearly accustomed to getting his way in all situations. "Mr. Cole," Robert said, when Ethan opened the door, "I think we need to have a conversation." "Mr. Bennett." Ethan stepped back to let him in, acutely aware of how his small apartment must look to someone accustomed to boardrooms and country clubs. "Can I get you some coffee?" "That would be fine, thank you." As Ethan prepared coffee in his small kitchen, he could feel Robert's eyes cataloging every detail of his living space. The second-hand furniture, the crayon drawings on the refrigerator, the stack of past-due bills he'd forgotten to put away. It all felt suddenly inadequate under the scrutiny of one of Portland's most powerful men. "You have a lovely home," Robert said, settling onto the couch with his coffee cup. "It's clear that you and your daughter are very happy here." "We are," Ethan said carefully, unsure where this conversation was heading. "My daughter is not happy," Robert continued without preamble. "She hasn't eaten properly in 3 days, she's missed 2 board meetings, and she spent yesterday crying in her office instead of reviewing quarterly reports. This is not like Lauren." "I'm sorry to hear that," Ethan said, though part of him was relieved to know that Lauren was hurting too. It meant their relationship had mattered to her as much as it did to him. "Are you—" Robert's eyes were sharp and assessing. "Because from what I understand, you're the reason she's miserable." The accusation stung because it was true. "Yes, sir, I am." "Good. A man should take responsibility for his mistakes." Robert leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. "Now what are you going to do about it?" "I don't know if there's anything I can do," Ethan admitted. "I said some things I shouldn't have said. Made some assumptions about her motivations that were unfair and hurtful." "Did you mean them?" "No," Ethan said immediately. "I was scared and angry about losing my job and I took it out on her. She didn't deserve that." "Fear makes fools of us all," Robert observed. "The question is whether we're wise enough to learn from our foolishness." They sat in silence for a moment. 2 men from completely different worlds, united by their love for the same woman. "Can I tell you something about my daughter?" Robert asked eventually. "Of course." "Lauren has never brought a man home to meet me. Not once in 29 years. She's dated, of course, successful men, wealthy men, men who looked perfect on paper and bored her to tears within months. Do you know why? Ethan shook his head. Because none of them saw her, Robert continued. They saw the Bennett name, the family fortune, the social connections. They wanted to marry the heiress, not the woman. Lauren learned early to protect herself from that kind of superficial interest. She thought I was different, Ethan said quietly. She thought you loved her for who she is, not what she has. Was she wrong? The question hung in the air between them like a challenge. Ethan thought about Lauren teaching Mia to make pasta, about her genuine delight in the Saturday market, about the way her whole face lit up when she talked about building communities instead of just structures. No, he said firmly. She wasn't wrong. I do love her for who she is. Then why did you walk away? Because I'm an idiot, Ethan said, echoing Mrs. Rodriguez's assessment. Because I was so afraid of being seen as someone who was using her that I couldn't accept help when I needed it. Because I let my pride matter more than her happiness or Mia's. Robert nodded slowly. Pride is a luxury that poor men can't afford and rich men can't abandon. It makes fools of both. Is there a way to fix this? Ethan asked. Or am I too late? That depends, Robert said, reaching into his jacket pocket and pulling out a manila envelope. How serious are you about affordable housing development? Ethan stared at the envelope, afraid to hope. Very serious. Good. Because Bennett Industries needs a project manager for our new community development division. Someone with construction experience, community connections, and the vision to build homes that families can actually afford to live in. Sir, the salary is competitive, Robert continued, sliding the envelope across the coffee table. The benefits are excellent, and the work would be exactly what Lauren told me you've always dreamed of doing. Ethan opened the envelope with trembling hands. Inside was a formal job offer, complete with salary figures that made his eyes widen, and benefit packages that would secure Mia's future in ways he'd never imagined possible. This is incredibly generous, he said carefully. But I need to know, is this offer because I'm qualified or because your daughter cares about me? Robert's smile was approving. Both, he said honestly. You're absolutely qualified. I had my people investigate your work history, talk to your supervisors, review projects you've worked on. You're exactly what we need for this position. But would I be offering it to you if you weren't involved with Lauren? Probably not. Does that matter? Ethan considered the question seriously. In the end, it came down to what Mrs. Rodriguez had said about pride being cold comfort. He could turn down this opportunity and maintain his independence, or he could accept it and build the kind of life he'd always dreamed of for himself and Mia. When would I start? He asked. Monday, if you're willing. We have 3 housing projects in development that need immediate attention. And Lauren, does she know you're here? Robert's expression grew serious. She doesn't know about the job offer, but she does know that I think you're either the best thing that's ever happened to her, or you're going to break her heart completely. I'm hoping you'll prove it's the former. After Robert left, Ethan sat in his apartment holding the job offer and thinking about second chances. About the courage it took to accept help when you needed it. About the difference between pride and dignity, between independence and stubborn foolishness. His phone rang, interrupting his thoughts. The caller ID showed Mia's school. Mr. Cole, this is Principal Henderson. I'm calling because Mia seems to be having a difficult day. She's asking to speak with Lauren, and when we told her that wasn't possible, she became quite upset. Could you come pick her up early? I'll be right there, Ethan said, already reaching for his keys. He found Mia in the principal's office, curled up in an oversized chair with tears streaming down her face. The sight of his usually resilient daughter looking so small and sad broke his heart completely. "Hey, baby girl," he said softly, kneeling beside her chair. "What's wrong?" "I miss Lauren," Mia whispered, throwing her arms around his neck. "Is she mad at us?" "She's not mad at you, sweetheart. Never at you. But she's mad at you." Ethan considered how to explain adult relationships and hurt feelings to a 6-year-old. "We had a disagreement," he said finally. "Sometimes grown-ups say things they don't mean when they're scared or worried." "Are you going to fix it?" Mia asked with the direct practicality that never failed to cut to the heart of complex situations. "I'm going to try," Ethan promised. "Would you like that?" Mia nodded vigorously. "I love Lauren, Daddy. She makes us both happy." "She does make us happy," Ethan agreed, feeling the last of his resistance crumble under the weight of his daughter's wisdom. "Let's go home and figure out how to tell her that." That evening, after Mia was in bed, Ethan sat down with his laptop and began to write. Not a text message or an email, but an actual letter, something substantial enough to convey everything he needed to say. "Lauren, I owe you an apology that's bigger than any words I can find, but I'm going to try anyway. You were right about everything, about my pride, about my fear, about the way I ran when things got complicated. I was so afraid of being seen as someone who was using you that I couldn't see how much I was hurting the woman I love. Your father came to see me today. He offered me a job with Bennett Industries, and I'm going to take it. Not because I need the money, though I do, and not because it's the easy way out of my employment situation. I'm taking it because it's the work I've always dreamed of doing, and because I trust you when you say I'm qualified. I'm taking it because I finally understand that accepting help from people who love us isn't weakness, it's wisdom. I love you, Lauren. I love your kindness, your intelligence, your passion for making the world better. I love the way you listen to Mia like she's the most important person in the room, the way you make pasta from scratch just because it makes us happy, the way you've brought joy back into our lives when I'd forgotten what that felt like. Mia asked me today if I was going to fix things between us, and I told her I was going to try. The truth is, I don't know if I can fix what I broke. But I know I can't live with myself if I don't try. If you're willing to give me another chance, I'd like to take you and Mia somewhere special this weekend. There's something I want to show you both. Something I've been working on since the first night we had dinner together. I understand if you're not ready to trust me again. I understand if I've hurt you too badly to come back from this. But I hope you can find it in your heart to let me prove that loving you isn't something I'm afraid of anymore. All chaho, my love, Ethan, P.S. Mia wanted me to tell you that she's been practicing making butterfly pasta shapes so she can teach you when you come home. He printed the letter, folded it carefully, and drove to Lauren's house in the darkness. The security gate was closed, but Ethan left the letter with the guard, along with instructions to deliver it to Lauren first thing in the morning. Then he went home and waited. The response came 2 days later, not in the form of a phone call or text message, but as a knock on his apartment door at 7 in the morning. Ethan opened it to find Lauren standing in the hallway, her hair pulled back in a ponytail, and her eyes red from what looked like recent tears. "Hi," she said softly. "Hi," he replied, his heart hammering against his ribs. "Is Mia awake?" "Just getting dressed for school. Would you like to come in?" Lauren stepped inside, and immediately Mia's voice rang out from her bedroom. "Lauren, is that Lauren?" "It's me, sweetheart." Lauren called back, and within seconds Mia had launched herself out of her room and into Lauren's arms. "I missed you so much," Mia said, clinging to Lauren like she was afraid she might disappear again. Daddy said you weren't mad at me, but I was worried. I could never be mad at you, Lauren assured her, holding her tight. Never, ever, ever. Are you going to stay now? Mia asked hopefully. Lauren looked over Mia's head at Ethan, her expression careful but hopeful. That depends on your daddy. He wants you to stay, Mia said with absolute confidence. He's been sad without you. Really sad, not pretend sad. Has he? Lauren's smile was soft and tentative. Well, I've been sad without him too. Then you should both stop being sad and be happy together, Mia declared with the straightforward logic that only children possessed. After Mia left for school, dropped off by Jamie, who took one look at Lauren and Ethan together, and tactfully offered to handle the morning routine, they found themselves alone in the apartment for the first time since their fight. Your letter made me cry, Lauren said, settling onto the couch beside him, but maintaining careful distance. Good tears or bad tears? Both, she admitted. Bad tears because I could see how much I'd hurt you by not understanding your position. Good tears because I could see how much you'd grown, how much courage it took to write those words. I was a coward, Ethan said simply. I let my fear make decisions for me instead of my heart. We both did, Lauren replied. I was so hurt when you accused me of mixing business with personal feelings that I didn't stop to consider why you might feel that way. I didn't think about how it must look from your perspective accepting a job offer from the woman you're dating. But you were right, Ethan said. I am qualified. And even if the opportunity came through my relationship with you, that doesn't make it charity. Does that mean you're taking the position if you still think I'd be good at it? Lauren's smile was radiant. I think you'd be incredible at it. And I think Portland's working families are going to be very lucky to have you building their homes. They talked for hours that morning, working through the hurt feelings and misunderstandings that had driven them apart. They talked about boundaries between their personal and professional relationships, about ways to protect Mia from excessive media attention, about the challenges and possibilities of building a life together across the divide of their different backgrounds. There's something I want to show you, Ethan said, as the conversation began to wind down. Something I mentioned in my letter. What is it? You'll see. This weekend, if you're free. I'm free, Lauren said immediately. We're both free. Saturday arrived with unseasonably warm weather, the kind of October day that made Portland feel like the most beautiful city in the world. Ethan drove them to a lot in southeast Portland, a piece of land that had been vacant for years, but was now showing signs of new development. Where are we? Lauren asked as they got out of the car. This is where Bennett Industries is planning their first affordable housing project, Ethan explained, helping Mia out of her booster seat. 32 units designed for working families who make too much to qualify for traditional public housing, but too little to afford market-rate apartments. It's going to be beautiful, Lauren said, studying the architectural plans Ethan pulled from his truck. These designs are incredible. Who did this work? I did, Ethan said quietly. I've been working on them for the past month, ever since you first mentioned the possibility of a partnership. I wanted to show you that I understood the vision, that I could contribute something meaningful to the project. Lauren studied the plans with growing amazement. The designs showed not just buildings, but a community with common green space, playground equipment, community gardens, and gathering areas that would encourage neighbors to interact and support each other. Ethan, these are incredible, she breathed. This isn't just affordable housing. This is community development done right. Every family deserves more than just 4 walls and a roof, he said, echoing words she'd spoken weeks earlier. They deserve a place that feels like home. Daddy, Mia said, tugging on his jacket, can we show Lauren the butterfly garden? What butterfly garden? Lauren asked. Ethan grinned, leading them to a section of the plans that showed an elaborate garden space designed specifically to attract butterflies and other pollinators. Mia's idea, he explained. She said any place where families with kids are going to live should have butterflies. Lauren's eyes filled with tears as she studied the detailed garden plans. "It's perfect," she whispered. "It's absolutely perfect." "There's one more thing," Ethan said, his voice suddenly nervous. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box that made Lauren's breath catch in her throat. "Ethan," she began, but he held up a hand to stop her. "Let me say this," he said softly. "I know it's fast. I know we've only known each other for 2 months. I know there are a million practical reasons to wait and take things slow and be sensible about this. But..." Lauren's voice was barely above a whisper. "But I also know that I've been waiting my whole life to feel this way about someone. I know that you and Mia together have taught me what happiness really looks like. I know that I want to build a life with you literally and figuratively." He dropped to one knee in the dirt of the empty lot, opening the box to reveal a simple but elegant diamond ring. "Lauren Elizabeth Bennett, will you marry me? Will you be Mia's mother and my partner in everything? Will you help me build homes for families and raise our own family, and maybe even learn to make pasta without getting flour all over the kitchen?" Lauren was crying openly now, her hands pressed to her mouth as she stared down at him. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, yes, 1,000 times, yes." The kiss that followed was witnessed by construction workers at a neighboring site, by passing joggers, and by one very excited 6-year-old who cheered loudly enough to startle a flock of birds from nearby trees. "Does this mean Lauren is going to be my mom?" Mia asked when they finally broke apart. "If that's okay with you," Lauren said, kneeling down to Mia's level while Ethan slipped the ring onto her finger. "It's more than okay," Mia declared, throwing her arms around Lauren's neck. "It's perfect. Now our family will be complete." 6 months later, Ethan stood in the backyard of their new home, a modest house in a quiet neighborhood, big enough for their growing family, but not so grand as to feel impersonal. The wedding had been small, held in the butterfly garden of the housing project that had become his first major accomplishment as Bennett Industries Community Development Director. Lauren had worn her mother's dress, Mia had been the flower girl, and Mrs. Rodriguez had cried through the entire ceremony. Now, as he watched his wife and daughter plant flowers in the garden they'd designed together, Ethan reflected on how completely his life had transformed. The housing project had been a massive success, with a waiting list that stretched for months, and inquiries from other cities wanting to replicate the model. Bennett Industries had given him complete autonomy over the community development division, and he'd hired Tony as his first project manager. More importantly, he'd learned to accept help when it was offered, to see collaboration as strength rather than weakness. He'd learned that love didn't make him smaller, it made him braver, more generous, more willing to take risks for the sake of building something beautiful. "Daddy, come help us," Mia called from the garden, her hands dirty from planting and her face glowing with happiness. At 7 years old, she was thriving in ways that went beyond simple contentment. She had a mother who adored her, a stable home, friends at her new school, and the confidence that came from being genuinely cherished. "What are we planting today?" Ethan asked, kneeling beside them in the rich soil. "Butterfly bushes," Lauren explained, her own hands stained with earth. Mia insisted we needed flowers that would bring butterflies to our garden. "Because butterflies make everything more beautiful," Mia added seriously. "And they remind us that good changes are possible, even when they're scary at first." As they worked together in the afternoon sunshine, their hands dark with soil and their hearts full of the quiet contentment that comes from building something lasting together. Ethan thought about the morning in the coffee shop that had started it all. A simple act of kindness offered without expectation of reward had grown into something neither of them could have imagined. Love, it turned out, was like Lauren's butterfly garden. It required patience and faith, and the willingness to trust that something beautiful would grow from small beginnings. It required the courage to be vulnerable, to accept help, when it was offered, to believe that two people from different worlds could create something entirely new together. That evening, as they sat on their back porch, watching Mia chase fireflies in the gathering dusk, Lauren curled against his side with her hand resting on the gentle curve of her belly, where their son was growing. Ethan felt a profound sense of gratitude wash over him. "What are you thinking about?" Lauren asked softly, her voice warm with the contentment that had become their daily companion. "Butterflies," Ethan said, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. "How they have to trust the transformation process, even when they can't see what they're becoming." "And what have we become?" she asked, smiling up at him. Ethan looked out in their garden, where butterfly bushes swayed in the evening breeze, and Mia's laughter echoed like music. He thought about the families moving into the affordable housing communities they'd built together, about the life growing inside Lauren, about the simple miracle of love that had transformed them all. "Everything we never knew we needed," he said softly. "Everything beautiful and real and worth waiting for." As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, and Mia finally tired herself out, chasing fireflies, Lauren and Ethan sat in comfortable silence on their porch, surrounded by the garden they'd planted, and the life they'd built from nothing more than kindness and courage, and the radical decision to trust in love. In the distance, a night-blooming flower opened its petals to the darkness, releasing its sweet fragrance into the air. Somewhere in the city below, other families were settling into their own homes, creating their own small miracles of connection and care. And in Lauren and Ethan's garden, the butterfly bushes rustled softly in the breeze, promising transformation and beauty to anyone brave enough to believe. The construction worker and the billionaire heiress had found each other in a coffee shop on an ordinary Tuesday morning, two strangers who had stepped forward when kindness was needed. Now they were a family building homes and raising children, and proving every day that love, real, transformative, enduring love, was always worth the risk. Under the endless Portland sky, surrounded by the scent of flowers and the promise of butterflies yet to come, they had found their way home to each other. And that was the most beautiful construction project of all.